Chapter 1251. Suddenly, a white human skeleton jumped out in front of the three people. It was a complete human skeleton, very lifelike. When it suddenly jumped out, Ning Shu almost couldn't control himself and kicked it. Luo Jiang jumped up in fright and hugged the beautiful doctor tightly. Ning Shu got close to Luo Jiang, took the silver and pierced it into Luo Jiang's waist. Not only that, he also pierced it several times. Luo Jiang was now in a state of high tension. He felt a little pain in his lower back, but he didn't pay much attention to it. Instead, he hugged the beautiful woman tightly, making his mind ripple. He was scared, but also rippled. After going through a few scary things, the beautiful doctor really couldn't stand this kind of fright. Although she knew it was fake, but in this kind of atmosphere, it was very scary to suddenly appear. Even if she knew that horror movies were fake, she was still scared. The beautiful doctor said to Luo Jiang that she wanted to go out. She really couldn't stand it anymore. A staff member took the three people out. When Ning Shu went out, he felt his legs were shaking. Luo Jiang and the beautiful doctor's faces were pale, and their bodies were floating. They sat on the bench and rested for a while before they recovered. Luo Jiang went to buy water, and Ning Shu and the beautiful doctor sat together. Ning Shu thought for a moment and asked the beautiful doctor, "Dr. Wu, do you like Luo Jiang?" "I can't say that I like him, I just have a good impression of him." The beautiful doctor's pale face blushed. Ning Shu was a little surprised and asked, "What do you like about him?" "I just feel that he is not the same as ordinary people, he is more interesting," the beautiful doctor said. A person who stayed at home for 2 years couldn't be said to be humorous. She probably couldn't find any good points, so she used special to describe him. Ning Shu said, "But you still have to be careful. Men are nothing more than that." "Old man." The beautiful doctor couldn't help but spit at Ning Shu. "I heard from Luo Jiang that you are still in university. Do you have a boyfriend?" "You still need to have a boyfriend in school. Love in school is very beautiful, it makes people miss it. Go to the library together and walk around the campus." Ning Shu shook his head. "No, there's no rush. If I bloom, the fragrance of the flowers will come. I'll become better and meet better people. A dragon would not condescend to stay in the same ditch as a loach." The dragon said, "What qualifications do you have for me to condescend? If you want to soar in the sky, you have to become a dragon." The beautiful doctor nodded. Luo Jiang had already bought the water back, and he considerately opened the bottle cap for the beautiful doctor. As for Ning Shu, Luo Jiang directly threw a bottle of water to her and did not help to open the bottle cap. Ning Shu easily unscrewed the cap. Seeing that Luo Jiang was still unscrewing the cap, he placed the water in the hands of the beautiful doctor. "Drink mine." Ning Shu took the beautiful doctor's water, unscrewed the bottle cap and drank. Luo Jiang was speechless. Fuck, he shouldn't have brought this girl here. She stole the limelight from him. If it wasn't for the fact that Hu Duo was a girl, Luo Jiang would have suspected that this bastard was trying to steal his girl. Ning Shu drank the water while looking at Luo Jiang. Luo Jiang's face was a bit yellow, and he was sweating profusely. Luo Jiang kept wiping the sweat on his face with a tissue. Seeing Luo Jiang like this, Ning Shu sighed in relief. It seemed that he had stabbed the right thing. Just in case, Ning Shu stabbed him several times. After completing the mission, Ning Shu was not in the mood to play with Luo Jiang anymore. He stood up and accurately threw the water bottle into the trash can. "I'm going back to read my book. You guys have fun." Ning Shu clapped his hands and said. Luo Jiang already did not want this damn girl to cause trouble here. He had to get the beautiful doctor first before he could get the reward. When he had the money, he would deal with this girl. Who asked her to be so arrogant? Luo Jiang still wanted to persuade him to stay. Isn't there still the pirate ship? After saying that, Luo Jiang regretted it. After coming out of the haunted house, his body was a bit weak. Playing the pirate ship was simply self-torture. Ning Shu waved his hand. I don't want to play anymore. Dr. Wu, I'm leaving. Remember to use the pepper spray I gave you. Ning Shu said. The beautiful Dr. Ning Shu waved her hand. Ning Shu felt relieved and left. Even if the two of them had an accident, the beautiful doctor would not be at a disadvantage. At most, she would be touched, but she would not play until the end. Did he really think that the chicken soup he drank was for nothing? After Ning Shu left, Luo Jiang and the beautiful doctor continued to play. The atmosphere when the two of them were together was more awkward and ambiguous than when the three of them were together. They played the relaxing and romantic games. They definitely did not play the haunted house, the pirate ship, or the roller coaster, which would destroy their image. After coming out of the amusement park, the two of them went to a romantic place to eat, and then went to watch a movie. When the sky was dark, Luo Jiang drove the beautiful doctor to the door. Aren't you going to invite me up? Luo Jiang leaned on the window and asked the beautiful doctor. The beautiful doctor refused. It's too late, you should go back. After saying that, she did not give Luo Jiang a chance to speak and went upstairs. Luo Jiang could only helplessly shrug his shoulders. He could only attribute it to a woman's reserve. Luo Jiang could only drive home. Ning Shu heard movement in the hallway. He walked to the peephole and saw Luo Jiang open the door with the key. Then, there was the sound of quarreling coming from the opposite door. It was the father and son of the Luo family. Where did you go to fool around so late at night? Dad, how many times have I told you, I'm not fooling around. I'm fighting for my career. How can I say it so that you can understand? Luo Jiang's voice was very impatient. Even if I tell you, you won't understand. Luo Jiang's father kept chattering, which made Luo Jiang very impatient. He wanted to slam the door and leave, but he remembered that it was already dark, and he was bitten by a dog last time. Luo Jiang returned to his room and closed the door heavily, isolating his father's chattering. Ning Shu curled his lips. Parents and children might be enemies in the previous life, so in this life, they would be like this. There was no end to their demands. Your Uncle Luo's family is quarreling again. Mother Hu asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu nodded. Mother Hu shook her head and said, speaking of which, it's all Luo Jiang's fault. He's already so old, but he still let his parents suffer. He doesn't know how to share the burden of the family. Hu Duo, who was obsessed with Luo Jiang, also let Father Hu and Mother Hu worry and break their hearts. Some people were happy, and some people were unhappy. The two families had swapped. In order to avoid his father's chattering, Luo Jiang simply did not come home at night. He did not come home for several days. Ning Shu even suspected that Luo Jiang was living with the beautiful doctor. Did the two of them have any substantial relationship? Did the system repair Luo Jiang's body again? Ning Shu could not sit still. He ran to the hospital to see the beautiful doctor. He pulled the beautiful doctor to a corner and asked, Is Luo Jiang living with you? The beautiful doctor shook her head, No. Ning Shu sighed. He thought the two of them were living together. Ning Shu looked at the beautiful doctor up and down. You didn't take advantage of him, right? You can't let that bastard Luo Jiang take advantage of you. Chapter 1252. The beautiful doctor said that she didn't live with Luo Jiang, and they didn't have any breakthrough relationship. Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief. She was really trying to prevent the world from being destroyed, no, to prevent Luo Jiang from doing that with the beautiful girl. She was really worried. She was even more worried than a husband who caught his wife in the act. However, Ning Shu didn't expect that Luo Jiang didn't have any progress with the beautiful doctor, but he did have some fun with the beautiful nurse. And even the pattern didn't change. First, he took the beautiful nurse to the amusement park, and then to the haunted house. Luo Jiang had been to the haunted house before, so he was a little familiar with it, but the beautiful nurse was still scared. Then, they ate and watched a movie, and then he sent the beautiful nurse home. After that, he confessed and gave her flowers. Luo Jiang knew that the beautiful nurse lived alone, so he said that he wanted to go up and have some tea. The beautiful nurse hugged a bouquet of flowers, lowered her head and smelled the flowers shyly. She replied softly like a mosquito. Luo Jiang was suddenly overjoyed. Maybe he would have some harvest tonight. The two of them entered the house, and the beautiful nurse went to pour water for Luo Jiang. Luo Jiang sat on the sofa and looked at the balcony. The beautiful nurse's clothes were drying on the balcony. Black lace, Luo Jiang concluded that this woman was quite coquettish. The beautiful doctor was reserved, the damned girl opposite her was arrogant, and the beautiful nurse was coquettish. They really had their own characteristics. Luo Jiang stood up and went to the balcony to collect the clothes for the beautiful nurse. He put it to his nose and smelled it. Very fragrant. Luo Jiang's action made the beautiful nurse blush. She was very embarrassed and snatched the clothes from Luo Jiang's hand. Luo Jiang followed the beautiful nurse into the bedroom. There was a fragrance in the bedroom. Luo Jiang saw the big bed and his eyebrows twitched. The bed was very elastic. Luo Jiang looked at the beautiful nurse who bent over and put the clothes into the wardrobe. Luo Jiang swallowed a mouthful of saliva and stared at the beautiful nurse. The beautiful nurse was very embarrassed by Luo Jiang's stare. Her body was sweating. The atmosphere was getting hotter and hotter. Finally, the two of them fell on the bed. Luo Jiang was so excited that his whole body was shaking. Not only because of the beauty in front of him, but also because he was looking forward to his reward and a bright future. It was really not easy to push down a beauty. The two of them quickly took off their clothes. The beautiful nurse's entire body went soft. Luo Jiang looked down at himself. He had already gotten up. Luo Jiang heaved a sigh of relief. The system had finally repaired his body. However, it was too early for Luo Jiang to be happy. In just a short while, before he could even enter, he suddenly couldn't control himself anymore. The turbid liquid splashed onto the bed sheet, and Luo Jiang was instantly petrified. Shock, shame, embarrassment, anger, and embarrassment. Moreover, his lower body was throbbing with pain, but it didn't hurt that much anymore after he was done. The beautiful nurse looked at Luo Jiang in confusion. Luo Jiang immediately pressed down on her body. Luo Jiang, instant man, instant man, instant man, these two words echoed endlessly in Luo Jiang's heart. He was an instant guy. That was impossible. Even Miss Five Fingers was not like this. He must be really nervous. That must be it. Luo Jiang kept comforting himself in his heart. Again, he would definitely be able to do it. However, after pouring out 1,000 li, Luo Jiang felt that his younger brother was somewhat disobedient. He felt a little powerless even if he wanted to. What the hell was this? With great difficulty, he finally felt something. His younger brother stood up firmly. However, it was still pouring out 1,000 li. Moreover, it was still a little painful. Luo Jiang hissed and took a deep breath. The beautiful nurse sat up and stared at Luo Jiang. Her expression was somewhat astonished. Her expression was very strange. Impotence. Premature ejaculation. The beautiful nurse was a nurse. Of course, she knew about Luo Jiang's current situation. Being stared at by a woman like this was simply trampling on Luo Jiang's self-esteem. His masculinity was no longer there. He couldn't even conquer a woman. This was simply the biggest blow to a man. Luo Jiang's expression was like a pallet. He took a deep breath and said, "I'm a little nervous. Let's do it again." The beautiful nurse smiled kindly. She took the initiative to hug Luo Jiang and encourage him. She tried every possible way to help Luo Jiang. However, when Luo Jiang's little brother stood up, he couldn't control himself and poured out 1,000 li. Even if Luo Jiang clamped his buttocks, he still couldn't stop the flood from erupting. Luo Jiang was once again caught in a landslide. The beautiful nurse, Luo Jiang didn't dare to look directly at the beautiful nurse. He also didn't dare to look at the beautiful nurse's expression. He really wished he could find a hole to hide in. Luo Jiang also didn't know what went wrong. He was bitten by a dog. However, his body had already been repaired by the system. Why did such an embarrassing situation still occur? Luo Jiang wanted to die. I wasn't in the right state just now. Let's do it again. Luo Jiang said in a low voice. He was both angry and anxious in his heart. The beautiful nurse almost couldn't control herself from rolling her eyes. She picked up her clothes and put them on. It's okay if you're not feeling well. But Luo Jiang reached out his hand towards the beautiful nurse. However, the beautiful nurse still left the bedroom. The beautiful nurse turned her head and said to Luo Jiang, "You should also put on your clothes." Luo Jiang covered his indescribable place. His hand was sticky. Luo Jiang really wanted to die. He was about to take down this beauty. However, what the hell was the situation now? Luo Jiang stared at his own piece of meat. He was so angry that he wished he could chop it up. Who asked you to fail to live up to his expectations? His reward, his money, and his girl. He couldn't even stand up. Everything was gone. All of his honor and disgrace were tied to this piece of meat. However, he failed to live up to his expectations. Luo Jiang pulled his hair like a madman. He wished he could roar out loud. However, this was the home of a beautiful woman. No matter what, he had to endure it. If there wasn't this time, there would be a next time. Luo Jiang put on his clothes and left the bedroom with an awkward expression. The beautiful nurse was drinking water. She glanced at him. Although the beautiful nurse's attitude was normal, Luo Jiang still felt that she was laughing at him. Luo Jiangsheng suppressed this feeling and apologized to the beautiful nurse. The beautiful nurse said, "Actually, a lot of men are like you. They just need to go to the hospital and get checked. It's not a terminal illness." Luo Jiang felt that his head was about to emit smoke. He was so embarrassed that he was sweating all over. "I'm fine. It's just that I'm too nervous today." Luo Jiang still wanted to hold on. However, when he thought about his current situation, Luo Jiang felt bitter in his mouth. Luo Jiang casually found an excuse and ran away. After leaving the beautiful nurse's home, Luo Jiang smashed everything like a madman. Luo Jiang questioned the system, "Didn't you repair my body? Why is it still like this? Why? The cooked duck that was in his mouth flew away just like that." In order to push down the beauty, in order to get the reward, in order to push down the beauty, he was about to go crazy from exhaustion. Finally, he was able to push down the beauty. However, the object was useless. He didn't even get a bit of meat. Oh my god, Luo Jiang felt that there was nothing in the world that could make a person collapse more than this. Chapter 1253. Luo Jiang felt that there was no one in the world who was more unlucky than him. Impotence in the bridal chamber. System, what is going on? Almost succeeded. Luo Jiang squatted on the ground and hugged his head. Luo Jiang felt so wrong that he was about to cry. Hey, system. Luo Jiang wiped his snot. After a while, the system said, "I have already repaired your little brother. As for why this happened, I don't know either." Luo Jiang was dumbfounded. The system actually said that it didn't know and didn't cause any problems. How could this be? In Luo Jiang's heart, the system was omniscient and omnipotent. It was what he could rely on. Now, it actually said that it didn't know. Then why don't you check and see what's going on? Scan my body. You will definitely find out what the problem is. Luo Jiang anxiously said to the system. The system coldly said, scanning requires energy. The human body is a very delicate thing. Scanning will consume a lot of my energy. I won't scan. Luo Jiang collapsed. Why are you so cold? My thing is just a decoration. How am I supposed to complete the mission? That is your problem. Last time, when I connected your thing, it consumed a lot of my energy. Scanning again and repairing your body will consume even more energy. After so long, you still haven't completed a single mission. Instead, you have wasted so much of my energy. Luo Jiang was very dispirited. He drove his car to the car rental company and returned the car. After paying the rent, Luo Jiang's wallet was empty. He couldn't stay in the hotel anymore. It seemed that he could only go home. Luo Jiang returned home with a hunched body. His face was ashen as he mourned for his little brother. He didn't even take his father's reprimand to heart. When he returned home, he locked himself in the house. Luo Jiang didn't give up. He felt that it was because he was facing a woman. It was because he was excited and nervous. Luo Jiang took out a colored magazine and looked at the scene in the magazine. His little brother was starting to recover. It was very impressive. Luo Jiang heaved a sigh of relief. He knew it was because he was nervous. Luo Jiang held it with his hand and wanted to do it again. But as soon as he moved his hand, it splashed onto the magazine. Luo Jiang's entire person was as if he was struck by lightning. He immediately let out an angry voice and tore the magazine. He trampled on the shards of the magazine again. It was already night time, and Luo Jiang's movements were very loud. Luo Jiang's father asked Luo Jiang what happened and what he was doing in the house. Luo Jiang shouted loudly, venting his anger on his father. What can happen to me? Do you expect something to happen to me every day? Am I your son or not? Luo Jiang's father picked up a stool and threw it at Luo Jiang. You don't come home every night. You go out and fool around. When you come back, you want to tear down the house. Can't I scold you? I'm your father. Luo Jiang picked up a stool and smashed it on the floor, the cupboard, and the sofa with all his might. His movements were very loud, and the people upstairs and downstairs were all disturbed. Papa Hu knocked on the door of Luo's house. Luo Jiang's mother opened the door and said to Papa Hu, "Help me persuade her." Papa Hu walked into the house and saw the confrontation between the father and son. The floor was a mess. Luo Jiang, you even attacked your father? Papa Hu asked. Luo Jiang turned his head and stared at Papa Hu. His bangs covered his eyes and formed a shadow on his forehead. What does my family's matter have to do with you? Don't think that I don't know that you are here to watch the show. Luo Jiang's voice was filled with disdain. Papa Hu was not angry. He only said, no matter what, I am your elder. You should talk to your elder like this. No matter what, you are still a university student, and a graduate from a good university. Where did your studies go? Luo Jiang straightened his neck and said, I didn't eat your rice or use your money. What qualifications do you have to lecture me? I am not lecturing you. I am just stating the facts. Papa Hu was speechless. When he saw Luo Jiang's father holding his chest and gasping for breath, he quickly said, Old Luo, calm down. Don't be angry. Luo Jiang's father's face turned green, and his breathing was a little rapid. It looked like his blood pressure was soaring. Old Luo. Luo Jiang's mother quickly went into the house to get medicine for Luo Jiang's father. Luo Jiang was also a little scared. Although he was a little impatient with his parents, if something really happened to his father, he would definitely be at a loss. The current Luo Jiang could only rely on his parents to survive. The children in this country wanted the freedom of the children abroad, but they were not as independent as the children abroad. If they wanted everything, they might as well go to heaven. Luo Zhang's father sat on the sofa, and Luo Zhang's mother helped him breathe. Ning Shu and Mama Hu arrived at Luo Zhang's house. When they entered the house, they saw this situation. Ning Shu saw Luo Zhang's gloomy face. It was as if his whole person was shrouded in a dark aura. Luo Zhang was still as bright as a peach blossom before. Looking at his current appearance, he probably knew that there was something wrong with his body. Papa Hu said to Luo Zhang, "Quickly apologize to your father." Luo Zhang straightened his neck, turned around and went into the bedroom. Luo Zhang's father looked tired, but at this moment, his breathing was stable. He said to Papa Hu, "I let you see a joke. Children and grandchildren have their own fortune. Young people are very popular. It is normal that they are not sensible. As for men, they should be sensible later." Luo Zhang's father sighed, "He is like this." Sigh. It was not good for Papa Hu to stay in Luo Zhang's house. Mama Hu and Ning Shu also left Luo Zhang's house. After entering the house, Mama Hu shook her head and said, "He is always restless all day long. What's the matter with that Luo Zhang? Is there something wrong with his brain after staying at home for too long?" Papa Hu was really puzzled. He really said all kinds of nonsense. He did not look at the situation at all and said whatever was on his mind. If he did not have the confidence and capital to say it, it would only make people think that this person was not sensible and mature. Ning Shu felt that it was very normal. Luo Zhang had always been a person with high self-esteem. Now that he had the system, he felt that he was a superman. He did not put ordinary people in his eyes at all. The next day, Luo Zhang's father dragged his tired body to work. Luo Zhang begged the system for a whole night, but the system did not agree to help him scan his body to see what was wrong with his body. It also refused to help him repair his body. Luo Zhang had no choice. Since there was something wrong with his body, he naturally had to go to the hospital. Luo Zhang found the beautiful doctor, took off his pants, and said that there was something wrong with his body. It must be a problem after the surgery. The beautiful doctor was speechless. This person always had something wrong with this place. Every once in a while, he would come to the hospital to see this place. Luo Zhang told the beautiful doctor about his situation and asked her to think of a way. He could not be a quick shooter. Otherwise, how could he conquer a beauty? Luo Zhang was sure that there was something wrong with the surgery last time, which caused his situation to become like this. Luo Zhang shamelessly wanted the beautiful doctor to be responsible. The beautiful doctor was a little unhappy. She worked hard to operate on him and also paid for his medical expenses. Chapter 1254. Originally, Luo Zhang's body was bitten beyond recognition by the dog. It was already a miracle that he could recover like that. He was already injured, so it was normal for problems to occur. But Luo Zhang put the blame on her, so the beautiful doctor was a bit angry. How could this person be like this? What was the difference between this and a medical disturbance? Moreover, she was the one who paid for the medical expenses. She still had not paid the medical expenses back to her. Now he put the blame on her. How could it be like this? The beautiful doctor lightly said, "At that time, your body was bitten, so it's already not bad that you can become like this." Luo Zhang saw the beautiful woman's cold face. He could not help but grab his hair and said, "I'm not blaming you, it's just that I'm a man now, you should understand." Luo Zhang regretted coming to find the beautiful doctor. If he knew earlier, he would have found another doctor and let the beautiful doctor know that his body was useless. Wouldn't that little bit of good impression be gone? What do I not understand? There are many patients like you, you can be treated slowly. The beautiful doctor politely said. Luo Zhang was angry in his heart, but he also knew that this was not the beautiful doctor's fault. It was the system's fault. It clearly promised to help him repair his body, but this kind of problem occurred. Such a lousy system. Luo Jiang was about to die from anger. The beautiful doctor prescribed some medicine for Luo Jiang and let Luo Jiang go to the pharmacy to get the medicine. After buying the medicine, Luo Jiang did not even have any coins on him. Luo Jiang did not think that taking medicine would be of any use, but it was better than nothing. He still hoped that the system could help him repair his body. Luo Jiang once again begged the system, "One last time, please help me one last time. I don't ask for it to be as strong as before, just like how I was before." The system coldly said, "You did not complete a single task, yet you want me to waste energy. Wasn't the task supposed to be completed, but I have the heart but not the strength. If I could, I would have completed the task." Luo Jiang said in a low voice. The system did not speak anymore. Luo Jiang dejectedly went home. Luo Jiang's mother saw the medicine in Luo Jiang's hand and quickly asked, "What medicine is this?" Luo Jiang carried the medicine behind his back and lightly said, "Nothing, it's just some anti-inflammatory medicine." Luo Jiang was too embarrassed to tell his mother that he could not do it. Luo Jiang poured some water and took the medicine. Then, he lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Luo Jiang's expression was sluggish. How could his life be like this? He already had the system, so why was he so poor and depressed? Luo Jiang clenched his teeth. "What are the conditions for you to help me repair my body?" No matter what the conditions were, Luo Jiang was willing to pay. Only when one's body was in perfect condition could one succeed. Only by pushing the girl and conquering her would he be able to succeed. The system ignored Luo Jiang. Luo Jiang suddenly sat up and hammered the bed with his fist. "Say it. As long as I can pay, I can exchange it." Pushing down the system suddenly said, "I want the lives of your entire family. Do you agree?" Luo Jiang choked. His face was ferocious. "Are you playing with me? If I don't even have my life, how can I still talk about missions?" Luo Jiang was so angry that his chest heaved up and down. His entire body was trembling. He pushed down the system and said, "How about I take your parents' lives while you're still alive? Don't say any more. Change the exchange method." Luo Jiang's forehead was sweating profusely. The human soul is a good thing. The 7 emotions and 6 desires, the power of the soul, and the origin of the soul are all power. Pushing down the system side. Luo Jiang was sweating even more. The clothes on his back were soaked with sweat. Luo Jiang clenched his teeth and the veins on his forehead were bulging. "You want my parents' lives?" Luo Jiang's voice was trembling. What a stupid host. Didn't I say that the human soul is a good thing? Of course I want it. Especially a pure soul, or an extremely evil soul. Both of them have a huge power. The system's voice carried an imperceptible malice. Your soul has also started to become evil. Don't say it. Don't say it. Luo Jiang covered his ears and fell on the bed. He used the quilt to cover his body. The system said, "This condition is still valid." Luo Jiang's entire body was trembling. For the entire night, Luo Jiang thought about the system's words. It was as if these words were engraved in his brain. There was even a voice in his heart that bewitched him. His parents were old and would die sooner or later. Even if they died, it would be a worthy death. After the system repaired his body, he would bring honor to his ancestors and his parents' faces. However, Luo Jiang did not dare to kill his own parents. Even if he did not kill them with his own hands, it would still be sending his parents to a dead end. Luo Jiang was at a loss for the entire night. The next day, he woke up with a haggard face. When Luo Jiang's father saw his son's moral character, he became angry. He could not help but scold him. "Can you wash your face clean? A while ago, he was acting like a dog and did not have a job. He thought that he had learned bad things. However, after a few days, he was like this again. He was slovenly and sloppy. His complexion was very bad. He reckoned that he had played games for the entire night. Luo Jiang originally wanted to retort. However, he thought of something and obediently went to wash his face and brush his teeth. Luo Jiang's father was still not used to such an obedient Luo Jiang. When Luo Jiang came out to eat breakfast, Luo Jiang's father nagged him to find a job. He told him to calm down and find a job. Luo Jiang ate breakfast and only replied with a few hens. After breakfast, Luo Jiang's father was about to go to work. Luo Jiang stopped him and said, "Be careful on the road." Luo Jiang's father looked surprised. In the end, he smiled and nodded. After breakfast, Luo Jiang took the initiative to help his mother clean up the dishes, wash the dishes, and sweep the floor. Luo Jiang's mother was the same as her husband. She was not used to such a son. She only said in her heart that her son was sensible. Recently, Luo Jiang had been staying at home with a well-behaved appearance. Luo Jiang's mother also told Mother Hu that her son was sensible. He could help with the housework, buy groceries, and cook. Mother Hu was confused. She was very doubtful. She doubted that Luo Jiang's mother was talking about her son. It felt as if she was talking about another person. It was completely unrelated to Luo Jiang. During breakfast, Mother Hu told Father Hu and Ning Shu about this matter. Father Hu was also surprised. He immediately said, "It's a good thing that he can be sensible. Old Luo's hard times are over." Mother Hu muttered, "Why do I feel that this matter is not reliable?" Ning Shu held the chopsticks. She also felt that it was not reliable. It was hard to change one's nature. Luo Jiang thought that he was a person who could do great things. A person who wanted to achieve great things would always do housework, wash clothes, and cook. If Luo Jiang had the time, he would definitely go out to flirt with girls instead of doing these things at home. Ning Shu wanted to see what kind of tricks Luo Jiang was playing. Chapter 1255. When Ning Shu went out occasionally, he would meet Luo Jiang who was taking out the garbage. Seeing Luo Jiang carrying a garbage bag, Ning Shu suspected that Luo Jiang was possessed. "Duo brat, are you going to class?" Luo Jiang asked. Ning Shu nodded his head and stared at Luo Jiang. Luo Jiang's expression was a bit haggard, his eyebrows were knitted together. It seemed like there was something difficult to decide. Facing Ning Shu's gaze, Luo Jiang hurriedly avoided Ning Shu's gaze. Ning Shu squinted his eyes. What was Luo Jiang feeling guilty about? Luo Jiang's mother went out and saw Ning Shu. She smiled at Ning Shu and said, "Going to school?" Ning Shu nodded and looked at Luo Jiang's mother. Luo Jiang's mother's forehead was dark, it seemed like a disaster was about to happen. "Mom, you can go in." Luo Jiang pushed his mother into the house. He closed the door and went downstairs to take out the garbage. Ning Shu went downstairs and looked at Luo Jiang who was carrying a bag and walking in front. What the hell was Luo Jiang doing? Ning Shu had doubts in his heart, but he still went to class. Luo Jiang threw out the garbage and looked at the old man and old lady who were working out in the neighborhood. There were also children, men and women. Luo Jiang asked the pushdown system, "Why must I exchange my parents' lives and not others? There were so many people in this world, there were so many souls." The pushdown system said coldly, "Equivalent exchange, what, have you decided to give up your parents' lives?" The pushdown system was not omnipotent, it had to avoid the laws of heaven, and the soul of the person who seized it would be removed. But this kind of equivalent exchange, if both parties were willing, there would not be any problems. "Nonsense, I will not give up my parents' lives," Luo Jiang hurriedly retorted. The pushdown system only let out a sound that was like a sneer but also not a laugh. Hearing this, Luo Jiang's heart jumped, he realized that this system was not a good person, but it seemed like he could not turn back now. Moreover, with his body, he could not be a fast shooter his whole life. He had already finished the medicine prescribed by the hospital, but his symptoms didn't improve at all. It was still the same. Luo Jiang could only place his hopes on the system, not only for his bright future, but also for his own body. But his parents, Luo Jiang's face was distorted, and there was an indescribable gloomy aura around him. Ning Shu was more concerned about what had happened to the Luo family. Luo Jiang's change and Luo Jiang's mother's luck. Everyone had their own unique magnetic field. Luo Jiang's mother's glabella was dark. It was obvious that something had happened recently. Ning Shu was once a Taoist priest of Mao Mountain. Although he was not very proficient in physiognomy, he could still see something. In the evening, when Luo Jiang's father got off work, Ning Shu carried a garbage bag and brushed past Luo Jiang's father. Ning Shu obediently called him Uncle Luo. Luo Jiang's father stopped in his tracks, and Ning Shu nodded amiably. Ning Shu looked at Luo Jiang's father. His glabella was also dark, and his entire face was dark. His complexion was not good. What was the reason for this couple to be like this? Usually, in this situation, there would be some kind of catastrophe that would cause this kind of effect. Ning Shu threw away the garbage. When he went back, he looked at the Luo family's door. Why did this happen to Luo Jiang's family? Could it be a gas tank explosion or a car accident? Ning Shu returned home and looked at Papa Hu and Mama Hu's complexion. They were not like Luo Jiang's parents, whose glabella was dark. It could only be said that this catastrophe only appeared in the Luo family. Ning Shu was more puzzled. After pushing down the beauty, the system did not repair Luo Jiang's body, nor did it leave Luo Jiang. What was it doing? If the system repaired Luo Jiang's body, Luo Jiang would not obediently wash clothes and sweep the floor at home, repenting and turning over a new leaf. He would definitely go out to pick up girls and fight for his career. Repent and turn over a new leaf. Ning Shu instantly felt a ray of light flash through his mind. When a person did something wrong, they would either feel guilty and do something to make up for it, or they would refuse to admit it. They would just go with the flow and do whatever they wanted. Connecting it to the situation of Luo Jiang's mother, Ning Shu came up with a frightening idea. Luo Jiang was preparing to do something big. Ning Shu vaguely had some guesses in his heart, but he felt that this matter was a bit unimaginable, so he did not believe it. When he had nothing to do, Ning Shu would observe Luo Jiang. Luo Jiang seemed to have really changed for the better and became more sensible. He worked hard at home every day without complaint and even promised his father that he would go out and find a job. The Luo family welcomed an unprecedented harmonious atmosphere. Luo Jiang's father walked with the wind. However, Ning Shu saw that Luo Jiang's father's glabella was getting darker and darker. Previously, there was a bit of black smoke shrouding between his eyebrows. Now, his glabella was purplish-black. It was obviously a bloody disaster. Ning Shu called 2333 in his heart, the system that pushed down the beauty may be leaving, get ready. 2333's voice was very weak, it hasn't left yet, right? If I didn't say that, you wouldn't have replied to me. Ning Shu told 2333 about the recent events, as well as the situation of Luo Jiang's parents. He asked 2333 what might have happened. 2333 was silent for a moment, then said, this kind of system will also take a person's soul. If the system wants to leave the host, some will also take the host's life. We can also make a deal. Maybe Luo Jiang will use his father's life in exchange for the system to repair his body. Ning Shu, sure enough, it was similar to what she thought. Was Luo Jiang planning to sacrifice his parents? Ning Shu deeply felt that there was no bottom line for the evil of human nature. In order to take a shortcut, Luo Jiang would have to pay more. If Luo Jiang worked honestly and lived the life of an ordinary person, it would not be like this. If there was a pie in the sky, there might be a pie, but it was a poisonous pie. Who would do something for free without any benefits? He felt that this system that pushed down the beauty was more like a demon, evoking the desires of people. He always wanted to take advantage, always wanted to be comfortable, and easily reach the peak of life. Ning Shu sighed. He felt that Luo Zhang's parents were also quite miserable. Raising a child to prevent old age, meeting such a son was simply urging people to age. And now Luo Jiang was planning to sacrifice the life and soul of his parents to achieve his own career. The soul that was taken away by the system would eventually become soul power, and from then on the soul would scatter, not even having the chance to reincarnate. Ning Shu said, "Think of a way, his parents are innocent." In a way, this matter was also Ning Shu's responsibility. If Luo Zhang's thing was not destroyed, Luo Jiang would not have to sacrifice his soul in order to repair his body. But this kind of thing was addictive. If there was a first time, there would be a second time. This time it was his parents who were sacrificed, next time it might be other relatives. There is no way. 2333 said. There must be a way. There is no way. There is. Chapter 1256. Ning Shu didn't believe that 2333 didn't have a way. Why do you have to drag innocent people into this? You're going to put this on my head again. Merit was not easy to earn. Damn it, when it came to deducting merit, it was going to come crashing down. Ning Shu's heart ached. Without enough merit, how could she become a super mission enforcer? 2333 said, "You know, I don't have much energy. Why can't you figure it out? Think about it. Luo Jiang can't sacrifice his parents' souls. For the system, he has no value. Without value, the system will definitely leave Luo Jiang. Once the system leaves, you can invade and devour the system. You can take the system's luck and energy. Then you can perfect your own data. No matter how you look at it, you're the one who benefits, right?" 2333 said, "Stop trying to brainwash me. I'm just analyzing it for you. Tell me, what can you do?" Ning Shu asked. She realized that she didn't have a way to hold people's souls. Let people's souls temporarily leave their bodies. She used the Maoshan Taoists' method, but the suppression of this plane was a bit too strong. After all, this was modern society. Let the souls of Luo Zhang's parents leave their bodies. Leave their bodies, but if they left their bodies, where should she put the souls of Luo Zhang's parents? Ning Shu had never done something like this before. 2333 said, "If Luo Jiang really sacrificed his parents' souls, when the system absorbs the souls, I will take their souls. Is that really okay?" Ning Shu was a bit doubtful. Can't you take their souls first? Do you have to wait until the system absorbs them? What if the two sides fail to snatch the souls? I can't take their souls directly. That's against the rules. I will be obliterated. Besides, Luo Zhang's parents have nothing to do with me. If I take their souls directly, even if my intentions are good, I will die miserably. Ning Shu let out a long sigh. Fine, nothing can be accomplished without rules. Anyway, she would just wait like this. Everything now depended on whether Luo Jiang was willing to do it or not. Ning Shu was always ready. 2333 was also ready. Ning Shu speculated based on Luo Jiang's behavior. There was an 80% chance that Luo Jiang would sacrifice his parents' souls. He had to be a good child when his parents were dying. He had to be filial to his parents when they were dying. After struggling for a long time, Luo Jiang still couldn't make up his mind. Those were his parents, how could he sacrifice them just like that? However, Luo Jiang urgently wanted to change the current situation. Because he was an instant man, the beautiful nurse's attitude towards him was cold and indifferent. They were all polite when they saw him, but Luo Jiang still felt that they were mocking him. Luo Jiang was originally a sensitive person. Now that he went out, he wished he could cover his face tightly. Sometimes, the girls who passed by him would talk and laugh. Luo Jiang felt that they were laughing at him. If this continued, Luo Jiang felt that he would go crazy. His world had collapsed. He was even more embarrassed to appear in front of the beautiful doctor. The last time he went to get the medicine, the beautiful doctor tactfully asked him to return the hospitalization fee. How could Luo Jiang have any money? Being hinted to return the money like this, Luo Jiang felt both angry and embarrassed. He thought that the beautiful doctor was different from those tacky women, but the result was still the same. It was too disappointing. Now that she saw that he was down and out, she wanted to distance herself from him. Luo Jiang straightened his neck, with a disappointed look, he said loudly, "I will return the money to you." Luo Jiang's appearance made the beautiful doctor somewhat confused. She didn't do anything to him, right? The person who borrowed the money was still a big boss. The beautiful doctor hit her own head. She didn't know what she was thinking at that time. Why did she pay for Luo Jiang's medical expenses? Ning Shu met a gloomy Luo Jiang in the stairwell. Luo Jiang was holding the medicine in his hand. Luo Jiang gloomily stared at Ning Shu. This woman also came to mock him. He obviously wasted so much energy and material on these three women, but in exchange, he got such an ending. Ning Shu looked at the medicine. "What are you taking? What disease do you have? Let me see." Ning Shu flashed and snatched the medicine from Luo Jie's hand. Ning Shu took the medicine bottle and read, "Paroxetine, phenoxamine. Give it back to me." Luo Jiang's face was sinister as he snatched the medicine bag. Ning Shu curled his lips. "It's not like it's anything good. Why are you hiding it? What is this medicine used for?" "Phenoxamine, I'll go back and check." Ning Shu said with a smile. "You're not allowed to check." Luo Jiang roared, "This medicine is not mine, you damn girl." Luo Jiang coldly snorted, took a few steps up the stairs, and closed the door with a pang sound. Luo Jiang returned to the room and sat on the edge of the bed, gasping for breath. Large beads of sweat dripped down from his forehead. The room was quiet. Only Luo Jiang's heavy breathing could be heard, making it even more depressing. Luo Jiang wiped his face, wiping away his sweat and tears. "System, I agree." Luo Jiang said with difficulty. "Are you sure? Once the deal is done, there is no chance to back out." Luo Jiang clenched his cheeks, his face trembled, his eyes were red, and he tightly held his head. I agree." Luo Jiang finally started to cry. "Then when are you going to sacrifice?" The system coldly said. It felt as if it was asking what to eat tonight. Luo Jiang clenched his teeth and said, "Tonight, when my father gets off work. Will my parents die immediately without their souls?" Luo Jiang asked. If they suddenly died, he would have to bear the crime of murder. The system said, "They won't die immediately, but they will become vegetative and slowly die." Luo Jiang breathed a sigh of relief. "I know." He really wanted to end this neither human nor ghost life. Right now, he didn't even dare to go out. As long as people looked at him, Luo Jiang felt that his secret was exposed. Other people would definitely laugh at him in their hearts. After making up his mind, Luo Jiang breathed a sigh of relief. When he went out of the bedroom, he saw his mother mopping the floor. Luo Jiang took the mop from his mother's hand. "Let me do it, you go rest on the sofa." Luo Jiang's mother smiled. She wiped her sweat and sat on the sofa watching Luo Jiang mop the floor. Luo Jiang's mother had a gratified smile on her face. Luo Jiang didn't dare to look at his mother's eyes. His tears almost fell down uncontrollably. After cleaning the house, Luo Jiang bought some good food back. He emptied all his money and bought a pack of good cigarettes and a bottle of good wine. Luo Jiang hoped that his parents could understand him and forgive him. He really had no choice, he really had difficulties. When Luo Zhang's father came back from work, he saw a table full of good wine and good food. He was somewhat surprised. Why did you make it so good? Luo Zhang said, you usually work hard, I made you something delicious. Chapter 1257. Luo Zhang's voice was trembling. At this moment, Luo Zhang had an indescribable feeling in his heart. He was sad and sorrowful, but also excited and nervous. Luo Zhang's father sat down and saw that there were so many dishes and wine on the table. He said to Luo Zhang, call Uncle Hu over to drink with us. Your Uncle Hu has helped us a lot. He even paid for the surgery last time. Luo Zhang immediately retorted, Dad, this is a family reunion. Why do we have to call an outsider over? Luo Zhang's father thought for a while and said, then I'll treat old Hu to a meal another day. Luo Zhang thought about it again and again. If something happened to their parents while he was fine, they would definitely suspect him. If there was an outsider as a witness and there was nothing wrong with the food, he would be less suspicious. Dad, I think we should call Uncle Hu over. Why don't we just call Uncle and his family over? There are so many dishes anyway, Luo Zhang said. Luo Zhang's father nodded in agreement. Luo Zhang got up and knocked on Ning Shu's door. It was Ning Shu who opened the door. Ning Shu asked, what's the matter? I want to invite you and your parents to my house for a meal, Luo Zhang said. Ning Shu was stunned. Luo Zhang walked into the house and invited father and mother Hu to eat. They were neighbors and it was only a few steps away. Father Hu couldn't refuse and the family of 3 went to the opposite house to eat. Father Hu saw the dishes on the table. There were many cold and hot dishes, and they were all expensive. Why are you so polite? There are so many dishes, Father Hu said. Luo Zhang's father was a little tipsy before drinking. He said to Father Hu, these dishes were all prepared by Luo Zhang. He said he felt sorry for me and prepared them for me. Ning Shu was eating when he heard Luo Zhang's father say that. He suddenly felt like he couldn't eat anymore. Why did he feel like it was his last dinner? Ning Shu glanced at Luo Zhang. He lowered his head and used his chopsticks to stir the food in his bowl. 2333, I think Luo Zhang is going to make a move. You have to be prepared, Ning Shu said to 2333 in his heart. 2333's voice was a little surprised, people can even kill their parents. Ning Shu didn't say anything. The more desperate the situation was, the more it tested human nature. Maybe it would shine brightly, maybe it would show its ugly side. Human nature was complicated. Luo Zhang was a little restless. He looked at his father, who was drinking with Papa Hu, and then at his mother, who was chatting with Mama Hu. Luo Zhang downed cup after cup of wine. Although they were drinking and chatting at the table, Ning Shu felt that there was an undercurrent surging, and the atmosphere was getting more and more tense. Ning Shu couldn't even control his tense body. He kept paying attention to Luo Zhang from the corner of his eyes. Luo Zhang put down the wine cup, and the wine cup made a tinkling sound. Because Luo Zhang had drunk a lot of wine, his face was red, and his eyes were a bit blurry. System, let's do it now. Luo Zhang closed his eyes as if he couldn't bear to watch. It was about to begin. Ning Shu's heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, Luo Zhang's father, who was drinking well, tilted his body and fell to the ground. Old Luo. Father Hu quickly pulled Luo Zhang's father up. What's wrong? Luo Zhang's mother. Mother Hu shouted in shock. Luo Zhang's mother also fell down. Dad, Mom. Luo Zhang opened his eyes. Tears streamed down his face as he hugged his father. He begged in his heart again and again. Forgive me. I really didn't do it on purpose. Forgive me. Ning Shu stared at the invisible battle in the void. Father Hu quickly picked up the phone and called the ambulance. Luo Zhang's parents were still breathing weakly, but they fell down as if they had fallen asleep. What's going on? Mother Hu looked confused and a little scared. Why did she suddenly fall down? Ning Shu said, "It's okay." The ambulance came quickly. Some medical staff carried a stretcher upstairs. They put Luo Zhang's parents on the stretcher and carried them to the ambulance. Luo Jiang looked like he was in a daze. Father Hu was the only one who was busy. Luo Jiang and Father Hu got into the ambulance. Mother Hu and Ning Shu went home to pack up. Mother Hu complained to Ning Shu, "We just came over for a meal. Why did we encounter such a thing?" Without any warning, both of them fell down. I don't know what happened. Ning Shu shook his head, indicating that he didn't know what happened either. Ning Shu asked 2333, "Did you get the soul?" 2333 sounded like he was about to die. "I got it. I took the soul when they weren't paying attention. My energy is completely depleted. I don't know why, but I feel like it's not easy to get energy every time. Until now, I can't make ends meet." 2333 didn't want to talk. He felt that this quest enforcer's bad luck had passed on to him. He didn't get anything every time. Sometimes, he even got nothing. Ning Shu comforted 2333, "You can only be a man of honor if you suffer the most. I'm just a system. Why should I suffer?" Ning Shu asked, "Do you have to wait until you push down the beautiful system and get rid of Luo Jiang? Do you have to invade and devour the system before you put the soul back?" The system nodded and didn't say anything else. Luo Zhang's parents' souls were saved. Ning Shu finally breathed a sigh of relief. Now, he just had to push down the system and get rid of Luo Jiang. Papa Hu came back from the hospital in the wee hours of the morning. Mama Hu quickly asked, "What happened to old Luo and his wife?" "They are in a vegetative state. They suddenly lost their consciousness. They have signs of life, but they don't have consciousness." Papa Hu felt very confused. It was too strange. They were still drinking, but they became vegetative. "Did I make old Luo drunk too much?" Papa Hu said uncertainly. Mama Hu immediately rolled her eyes. Luo Zhang's mother didn't drink. How did she pass out? It's quite strange. Papa Hu sighed. The Luo family was really unlucky this year. Old Luo had been in a lot of trouble recently. First, Luo Jiang was bitten by a dog. Now, both of them were in the hospital. They didn't even know if they could wake up. The family of 3 went to the hospital not long after. Ning Shu's Papa Hu asked, "Dad, how long can Uncle Luo stay in bed like this?" "I don't know. It's hard to say when he is in a vegetative state." Ning Shu hoped that he could push down the system and get rid of Luo Jiang quickly. The soul would be damaged if it left the body for too long. Luo Jiang stood at the door of the intensive care unit. He looked at his parents and cried. He didn't have the face to see them. Luo Jiang closed the door and sat on the chair in the corridor. A nurse came over and urged Luo Jiang to pay the bill. Luo Jiang didn't have any money on him. He could only drag himself home to get the money. When Luo Jiang returned home, he looked at the empty room and couldn't help but cry loudly. From now on, he didn't have his parents. He was all alone. Luo Jiang had some regrets in his heart, but it had already happened. He could only work hard and achieve great things. Only then could he be worthy of his parents and their sacrifice. Chapter 1258. You have already taken away my parents' souls, now you should help me repair my body. Luo Jiang wiped his tears and said to the system. Souls. The system's voice was cold, mixed with anger, I did not take away your parents' souls. Luo Jiang was immediately stunned, then he roared, You bastard, are you trying to renege on your debt? If you did not take away my parents' souls, how could my parents become like this? I made a fair deal, I said I did not take away your parents' souls, so I did not take them away. If you don't believe me, then forget it. Luo Jiang squatted on the ground, holding his head, and kept pulling his hair. This is impossible, where did my parents' souls go, how could they become like this, you just want to renege on your debt, hurry up and repair my body. Luo Jiang collapsed and shouted at the system. You devil, you devil. The system coldly said, you really are trash. What is the point of a trash like you still alive, just die. The system said. A trash like you is not worthy of my meticulous cultivation, you really can't support the wall with mud. When Luo Jiang heard the system's words, he suddenly had a bad premonition, and quickly asked, what do you want to do? I will not waste my time on a person like you. Luo Jiang instantly felt that the whole world was gloomy, and quickly begged, don't leave me, I will do anything you want me to do, really. Luo Jiang's heart resented the system for not keeping its promise, but the system really wanted to leave. Luo Jiang's heart was incomparably panicked. What should he do with his body, what should he do with his bright future? His parents were already dead, if the system also left him, he would really have nothing left. Tell me, what else do you want, I can promise you anything, really. Luo Jiang anxiously said, other than my life, I can give you anything. It's too late. Other than your life, you have nothing valuable. The system planned to leave Luo Jiang and take away his soul, it had spent so much energy on this person, but it did not gain anything. Luo Jiang felt a huge suction force, it wanted to suck away his soul. Luo Jiang's heart was filled with boundless fear, he was going to die. With a pa sound, the lights in the room went out, and the electricity in the whole building went out. Sizzling sound waves exploded in the air, causing people to feel extreme pain. Then, the electricity in the entire neighborhood was cut off, and the world fell into darkness and silence. Luo Jiang covered his head as blood flowed out from his ears. On the other side, Ning Shu was also covering his ears. His ears were stuffed with cotton. Couldn't the system's fights be quieter? The sizzling sound of electric current caused goosebumps to rise on everyone's skin. Fear, guilt, panic, all kinds of emotions surged into Luo Jiang's heart. There was also an uncomfortable sound wave that caused Luo Jiang to faint. This strange sound continued for quite a while. Ning Shu sat on the sofa and stood on his tiptoes, waiting for the system. Ning Shu had no way of interfering in this kind of system war. He did not know if 2333 could do it. If it was devoured by the other party, then it would be the joke of the entire mission world. Moreover, 2333's energy was obviously insufficient. He didn't even need to expend so much effort to deal with those systems before. Ning Shu tiptoed faster and faster, and the sound waves continued. Ning Shu waited and waited, and the sound waves became smaller and smaller. Finally, there was a slight cracking sound, like an eggshell cracking open. Then, it became completely quiet. Ning Shu put down his hands that were covering his ears and carefully shouted, 2333, 2333, 2333, you can't die. Ning Shu suddenly felt anxious. 2333 was really killed by the other party. You're the one who's dead. I probably won't come out for a long time. There's no more energy left. 2333 said and went back into hiding. Ning Shu couldn't help but wipe his face. He felt that 2333 was a bit of a burden now. Fortunately, he didn't die. If he encountered a more powerful system next time, wouldn't 2333 be dead? Ning Shu wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Why were the days getting worse and worse? She and 2333 complemented each other. Now that 2333's legs were obviously shorter, Ning Shu felt that it was a bit difficult to run. Wait, let's go and return the souls of the Luo couple first. Ning Shu shouted. Even if he had to go into hibernation, he could wait for a while. Go to the hospital and get closer to them. I'll put the souls back. 2333 said tiredly. It was already the wee hours of the morning. He would go to the hospital when the sun came up. The next morning, Ning Shu bought some fruits and went to the hospital. The Luo couple's beds were next to each other, and they looked like they were asleep. Ning Shu stood beside Luo Zhang's father's bed. This is a man. 2333 put the soul back into the body. This is a woman. Ning Shu was worried that 2333 would swap their souls. After that, 2333 went into hibernation. He probably wouldn't wake up for a while. Ning Shu walked out of the hospital and stretched his arms. Finally, everything was settled. Ning Shu bought 2 egg pancakes from the roadside and went to school while eating. He wanted to enjoy his university life. Luo Jiang woke up from the shock. He looked at the ceiling and knew that he wasn't dead. He let out a sigh of relief. Then, Luo Jiang thought of the system. Luo Jiang called out to the system in his mind, but the system didn't respond. Luo Jiang threw the joy of his life to the back of his mind. Instead, he was panicking. He felt like he had lost all his emotions. Pushing down the system and abandoning him, really abandoning him. He really had nothing left now. There was nothing. It was like drawing water with a sieve. If only this was a nightmare. But Luo Jiang knew that this wasn't a dream. Even if Luo Jiang knew that the system didn't have good intentions, he didn't dare to leave the system. He still needed the system to reach the peak of his life. Even if it was a puppet, it didn't matter. Luo Jiang and his wife, who were in the hospital, woke up. Their expressions were blank. What had happened? When the couple got home from the hospital, Luo Jiang thought that he had seen a ghost. He knelt down and kowtowed to his parents, saying that he was sorry. The Luo couple was confused. Then, Luo Jiang knew that his parents weren't dead. He got up and went into the bedroom and closed the door. His parents were back, but where was the system? Where was the system? He wanted the system. Without the system, how could he succeed? Luo Jiang called out to the system again and again, but the system didn't respond. Luo Jiang couldn't accept this difference. He was supposed to succeed, but he missed this opportunity. Luo Jiang played games all night. He hoped that when he was playing games, a system would appear. And it would be best if it was the original system. He felt that the system was the most suitable for him. Chapter 1259. Luo Jiang, who was an obedient child not long ago, returned to his old ways. Not only did he play games all day, but he also drank too much. When he was drunk, he would act crazy, saying that he had a system and was going to reach the peak of life. All kinds of beautiful women would throw themselves at him. He looked as if his spine had been pulled out, which made Luo Jiang's father so angry that his liver was about to explode. He thought that he had been honest and steady his whole life, but his son was not like him at all. He was really disappointed in this son of his. The peace of the Luo family was broken again, and the father and son quarreled every day. Luo Jiang's father wanted the Luo family to find a job and then find a woman to live a good life. But Luo Jiang felt that his father was an antique with old-fashioned thinking. He did not know anything and only knew how to work hard and not use his brain. There was no future at all. Ning Shu originally thought that after going through such a thing, Luo Jiang would wake up. He and his parents had walked through the gates of hell. He should have thought through everything, but Luo Jiang was still hoping for a pie to fall from the sky. A person's laziness really could not be underestimated. Luo Jiang was just too lazy to go to work and was afraid of suffering. He wanted to use the simplest, easiest, and highest paid way to succeed, to become a person above others, to become the center of attention. He was in the last stage of laziness cancer and could not be saved. Because of the previous incident, Fodder who began to alienate the Luo family. If the previous incident happened again and he suddenly collapsed, it was simply too scary. If something happened and he had to be blamed, his heart would not be able to take it. No matter how big the commotion next door was, Father Hu did not care. He took the newspaper and pretended not to hear. Even if he wanted to interfere, the other party did not appreciate it and said that he was a dog trying to catch mice. Father Hu had repeatedly warned Ning Shu not to get involved with Luo Jiang, who lived next door. Go to school and learn professional knowledge. Ning Shu nodded obediently and said that he understood. The Hu family automatically blocked the situation of the Luo family opposite. Anyway, as long as they did not smash their door, everyone would sweep the snow in front of their door and not care about others. Occasionally, Ning Shu would meet Luo Jiang when he went out. Luo Jiang had lost a lot of weight. His face was thin and sunken. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his hair was untidy, almost covering his eyes. His whole person looked extremely gloomy, and his whole body was filled with negative energy. When he looked at people, he still had an unruly and sinister look on his face. People who saw him couldn't help but take a detour. He didn't work hard and even felt that the whole world had let him down. He looked like he had been abandoned by the whole world. No, the world never needed him. Ning Shu usually went shopping with Mother Hu when he had nothing to do. Otherwise, he would try his best to memorize books and be a good boy. Learning these things now was to make life easier in the future. Whether it was for Hu Duo or Ning Shu himself. Ning Shu was just like an ordinary college girl. She shuttled through the school every day, looking at the campus hunks chosen by the female students. Life was very simple. The only problem was that he would sometimes meet Luo Jiang. Every time Luo Jiang looked at her, he looked as if he had been abandoned, as if she had abandoned him. She was a heartless person, a woman who despised the poor and loved the rich. Ning Shu just wanted to roll his eyes. Who has a relationship with you that goes beyond being neighbors? Fortunately, this place was going to be demolished, so they wouldn't have to face the Luo family in the future. Luo Jiang, who didn't have a halo above his head, looked a bit like a person with a mental illness. Mother Hu even tactfully told Luo Jiang's mother to take her son to the hospital for a checkup. Luo Jiang's gaze was very scary every time he looked at people. It was gloomy and terrifying, as if he would pounce on them at any time. Luo Jiang's mother was angry that the neighbor said that about her son, but she remembered this matter in her heart. When she was lying on the bed with her husband, she still talked about this matter. She said that her son had been staying at home for too long, and his brain wasn't very bright. Luo Jiang's father sighed and wanted to take Luo Jiang to the hospital. Sometimes, when he looked at his son, he felt a little scared. If he really stayed at home, he was afraid that he would be useless. When Luo Jiang heard that he wanted to go to the hospital, he immediately objected agitatedly. He thought that his parents found out about his impotence, so he angrily refused and said that he wasn't sick. However, Luo Jiang was still dragged to the hospital by his parents. However, he didn't go to the andrology department, but to the psychiatry department. He also consulted a psychiatrist. The conclusion of the examination was that he was under a lot of pressure, and his mental state wasn't very healthy. He came back with a big bag of medicine for depression. Ning Shu had been paying attention to the Luo family's matters and learned about Luo Jiang's situation. Luo Jiang's brain just couldn't wrap itself around it. It was up to him. He could do whatever he wanted. Anyway, the Luo couple locked Luo Jiang at home. Usually, they didn't have much time to meet. Soon, this neighborhood would be moved and demolished. They hoped that they wouldn't meet again in the future. Father Hu specially picked a house that was far away from the Luo family. There were invisible noises and violence every day, and it was also quite maddening. Soon, the Hu family moved to a new house, and it was closer to the school than before. It could be considered that they had started a new life. When they were moving, Luo Jiang rushed out and grabbed his arm. Ning Shu roared, "You bitch, are you going to abandon me?" Is it because I don't have a system now and I don't have money, so you won't follow me? Luo Jiang subconsciously felt that Hu Duo was his woman. Now that Hu Duo wanted to leave, Luo Jiang felt very angry. Ning Shu, what are you doing? Let go. Father Hu pulled Luo Jiang's hand away and protected Ning Shu behind him. Old Luo, what's going on? Father Hu looked unhappy. It wasn't good to scold a junior like Luo Jiang, so he just looked at Luo Jiang's father. I'm sorry. Luo Jiang's father pulled Luo Jiang into the house. Hurry up and move. He's crazy. Mother Hu's voice was soft when she said crazy. The Hu family moved as fast as they could, and they didn't have any contact with the Hu family. There was no noise, and he felt that his ears were already filled with the scene. Ding, mission completed. Do you want to leave the mission world? A mechanical voice sounded. Ning Shu went through it in his heart. Was there anything he missed? After thinking about it, it was about time. When Hu Duo came back, she would still be in her 3rd year of university. Then, she would have an internship and join the workforce. These things were all things that one needed to experience in life. If she left earlier, she would leave more time for Hu Duo and take up less of Hu Duo's life. Ning Shu nodded. Leave the mission world. Ning Shu's head was dizzy. He opened his eyes and looked down to see that he was standing on a gap that was as wide as a thumb. Looking outside through the gap, it was pitch black. Looking at the system space that seemed like it would disappear with the wind, Ning Shu was really scared. Ning Shu sat on the sofa gently. The sofa creaked, and Ning Shu's heart jumped. He was so scared. He was afraid that the system space would collapse if he used a little bit of strength. Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the sofa and began to cultivate, absorbing the pure soul power. Chapter 1260. When the absorption was almost done, Ning Shu opened his eyes and opened the status panel to look at his harvest. 2333's energy consumption was probably too high, and it drew the energy from the system space. The status panel was more transparent than before, and the words on it were very unclear. Ning Shu was basically guessing. Number, 2333. Name, Ning Shu, Advanced Mission Taker, Age, 27 points, 59 million soul, 340 life, 131 wisdom, 374 charm, 50 luck, 239 spirit, 270 faith, 20515 force, 402 aptitude, 159 merit, 13860 skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate fighting technique, exceptional martial arts, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management knowledge, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skills, beginner ghost catching skills. Honorary titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor items, Calm Aura, Calming Pill, Faith Aura, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2. Aura, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Sister Model Worker, Qinshi's Blessing, Leader Aura, Grass Blessing, Best Friend for a Lifetime, Miao Miao Miao's Blessing, Life-Saving Hand, Zhu Susuniang's Blessing, Founding Female General, Chen Ermiai's Blessing, Lawful Beauty, Chen Ning's Blessing, Transcending Race Communication, by San Yang's Blessing, Note, can only communicate within a certain range of wisdom. Fulfill Hu Duo's wish, not be bewitched by Luo Jiang, finish college, work. Honor your parents, and take revenge on Luo Jiang. Mission completion rate, 80%. Reward, 6 million points, 40 attribute points, 2000 faith, 10 merit points. 10 merit points. So shabby. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes and saw that the mission completion rate was only 80%, and then he figured it out. Because Hu Duo's mission was to finish college and work. But when she left, she didn't finish college, and she didn't work. So the mission was only 80%. Reward, an extra 2 million points. The system's mechanical voice said, Hu Duo has applied to reward you with an extra 2 million points. Ning Shu, surprise, an extra 2 million points. Although the mission completion rate was only 80%, Hu Duo's request for an additional 2 million points was quite interesting. Ning Shu immediately figured it out. The real threat to Hu Duo was Luo Jiang. Now that Luo Jiang had been dealt with, Hu Duo's life would not have any major disasters. As for studying, working, and being filial to her parents, it was all Hu Duo's own business. It seemed that no one liked other people occupying their lives, calling their parents and enjoying their own lives. The reason I offered my soul is to ask you to help me counterattack. After that, you can scram. I didn't offer my soul for you to enjoy. Ning Shu narrowed her eyes. She moved closer to the attribute panel and clicked on it. If this continued, she would definitely go blind. Serial number, 2333. Name, Ning Shu, Senior Mission Taker, age, 27 points, 5. 9 million/8. 0 million soul value, 340 HP, 131 wisdom, 37410 charm, 50 luck, 23910 spiritual power, 27010 faith, 205152000 combat power, 40210 aptitude, 159 merit, 1386010 skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate combat technique, exceptional martial arts proficiency, intermediate poison technique, elementary business management knowledge, elementary code programming, elementary lawyer skills, elementary ghost catching skill. Honorary titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor items, Calm Aura, Tranquil Pill, Faith Aura, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2 Aura, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Sister Model Worker, Chen Shi's Blessing, Leader Aura, Grass Blessing, Best Friend for a Lifetime, Miao Miao Miao's Blessing, Life-Saving Hand, Zhu Susuniang's Blessing, Founding Female General, Chen Ermiai's Blessing, Lawful Beauty, Chen Ning's Blessing, Transcending Race Communication, by San Yang's Blessing. After distributing the attribute points, Ning Shu took out the Ultimate Martial Art book from the system's small box. The Ultimate Martial Art book became thicker and thicker. The words, Ultimate Martial Art, in Xiaozhuan used to be light gold, but now the gold was getting thicker and thicker. The book was covered in water vapor and had a slight fragrance. Ning Shu flipped open the book. These auras were all very lifelike, and they flickered with a luster. Ning Shu guessed that these auras were the source of the water attribute world. These auras all carried a wave of spiritual energy, as if they had come alive from the pages of the book. A lotus flower with lotus leaves fluttered in the wind. It was really beautiful. Ning Shu smiled. He obtained a world source, but he didn't know where to find a few more. He didn't know what her world would be like after it was formed. It would be even better if she met boundary stones in the future. With the protection of boundary stones, the world would be more stable and it would suffer less damage. She would be able to merge with her world and live forever. She would have endless years to travel through the endless plains. Perhaps she would even be able to construct a few worlds. Just thinking about it made him excited. He was really excited and looking forward to it. From now on, she wouldn't be killed so easily. Ning Shu hugged the Ultimate Martial Art book and his face was filled with longing. However, he still had to find the world source first. Ning Shu kept the Ultimate Martial Art book and placed it into the system's small box. By placing things inside, even if the system space collapsed, he could still find it. It was like placing things in a bank safe. He wasn't afraid of anything happening. Right now, the channel to the virtual space was closed. It was closed the last time, but it was closed again. The chatting system, shopping center exchange system, GPS, all of them couldn't be used. My good girl. Ning Shu drew a cross in front of his heart, hoping that 2333 would be fine. Ning Shu sat on the sofa and took out a book from the bookshelf. The book's name was Theory of the Origin of the Universe. Ning Shu, so profound. Ning Shu flipped open the book and said that all planes were born from laws. Ning Shu knew about this. She had even been to the Sea of Laws. It also said that the Sea of Laws had an owner. Ning Shu, don't lie to me, if the Sea of Laws had an owner, she also wanted to be the owner of the Sea of Laws. Compared to the ultimate martial art that she was obsessed with, compared to the Sea of Laws, it was just a drop in the ocean. Ning Shu didn't take it to heart and placed the book back on the bookshelf. He recalled that a long time ago, the high-level trial mission rewarded him with a law stone. Ning Shu took out the law stone. The stone was pitch black and looked no different from a normal stone. The law stone was something from the Sea of Laws. Something from the Sea of Laws would definitely be affected by some laws. He heard that there were people from above who collected law stones. What use did the law stone have? Even the almighty beings above wanted it, there must be some secret behind it. Just a bit of laws was not enough to make those people desire it. With their abilities, they could go sightseeing in the Sea of Laws. 2333 could even go there. Chapter 1261. Ning Shu inserted some soul power into the law stone, but there was no reaction at all. As for her soul power, it was like a clay ox entering the sea, disappearing. Ning Shu inserted some more soul power, but it was still the same, so Ning Shu gave up. Maybe when she was stronger, she would be able to find out the secret. Right now, the most important thing was to stay alive, otherwise, no matter how many secrets and gossip there were in the future, she wouldn't be able to find out. Super mission takers didn't have a world, so they still didn't have the power to protect themselves. If they were killed instantly, they wouldn't even be able to cry. There would always be people above the rules, and rules were used to regulate ordinary people. So Ning Shu's wish was to jump out of the rules and control her own fate. Ning Shu put away the law stone, and when the virtual space channel was ready, she would ask the silver-haired man. Anyway, the silver-haired man owed her 3 questions. Now, there were only a few questions left. 2. 3. She wasn't in a hurry, that level was still far away from her. Ning Shu stretched, and the sofa creaked. Ning Shu didn't dare to move. Living in such a dangerous building was really frightening. Ning Shu directly said, "Let's go do the mission." Living in such a dangerous building, Ning Shu suspected that she might turn into pieces with the system space at any time. She didn't know what was outside the system space, but looking through the gap, it was dark outside, there was nothing, and it was silent. Okay. The system's voice was mechanical. Ning Shu raised her head and puffed out her chest, preparing to land in a beautiful posture. Luo Jiang was sent to a mental hospital by his parents, and the reason was that Luo Jiang's paranoia was getting worse. He always said that he had the system, that he had a cheat, that he had a lot of money, and that he had a lot of beautiful women. He clearly looked like a normal person, but the words he said were inconceivable. He went to the hospital for a checkup, and the doctor said that he might have played too many games. Luo Jiang's father directly smashed the computer, making Luo Jiang furious. Luo Jiang was flustered and exasperated, and directly said, "Why don't you all die? If you die, the system won't leave me, it won't leave me. You all should die." Luo Jiang's expression was deranged, and his eyes were scarlet red. Luo Jiang's father was so scared that his whole body trembled. What kind of child would want him to die? Although it was nonsense, the hatred in it made Luo Jiang's father's heart tremble. After tossing and turning for a few days, Luo Jiang's father decided to send Luo Jiang to a mental hospital. Everyone was tired from all the ruckus at home every day. Luo Jiang's mind was clear, but he was locked in a place where other than the doctors, everyone else was abnormal. Luo Jiang resented his father for being so heartless, locking him up in this kind of place and not being able to get out. Luo Jiang's father paid some money every month. Without Luo Jiang in the house, the atmosphere was much more relaxed. Luo Jiang's father comforted his wife and said, "Let's start saving money now." Ning Shu landed gracefully. After a moment of weightlessness, Ning Shu felt her soul fuse into her body. Suddenly, someone punched her on the nose. Ning Shu was so sour that tears came out of his eyes. His nose was numb. Ning Shu opened his eyes and touched his nose, feeling a warm and sticky sensation. His nose was bleeding. Fuck, who hit me? Ning Shu covered her nose and looked at the person in front of her. She was currently surrounded by a group of radishes. These radishes were older than 11 or 12 years old, while the younger ones were still a bit bumpy when they walked. Their clothes were tattered, their faces were full of dust, their white faces turned black, and their black faces turned into flowers. Their faces were very dirty. Looking at these children, Ning Shu had a bad premonition. She stretched out her hand that was stained with nosebleed. Her hand was very small, obviously it was a child's hand. At this moment, they were next to a towering pile of garbage. Beside their ears were buzzing flies that were like pinky fingers flying around. Hand over the thing. One of the boys, Ning Shu, stretched out his dirty hand. Get lost, you want to snatch my thing. Ning Shu coldly said. But her voice was that of a girl, and from her voice, she was not very old. So this time, she dressed as a little girl. Ning Shu thought that a wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. Ning Shu decided to run first. Although she didn't know what these children wanted from her, she decided to run first. Ning Shu took a deep breath and suddenly coughed. She felt that she had inhaled a lot of dust, and there was also a strange smell. Even the smell of nosebleed couldn't suppress the smell of this dirty garbage. Ning Shu turned around and ran. But now, Ning Shu was an ordinary person, and she couldn't run fast. After running for a while, she felt that her lungs were burning. Moreover, she was dizzy, her legs were like lead, and her stomach was growling. Behind her, there was a group of radishes chasing after her. Ordinary trash really made Ning Shu despair. She had never been so passive. Soon, Ning Shu was caught up by someone and was grabbed by the collar. Soon, several children held down Ning Shu and pinned down Ning Shu's hands and feet. Do you want to be beaten? A boy raised his dirty fist and said to Ning Shu fiercely. Two children touched Ning Shu's body and took out half a loaf of bread from the small cloth bag on Ning Shu's body. This loaf of bread had already been eaten by someone, and the other half was thrown away. The bread was very dirty, and the surface was already moldy. Ning Shu was somewhat baffled. Was it just to snatch this moldy loaf of bread? After getting the loaf of bread, the children's eyes lit up. Their eyes were green as they stared at the loaf of bread. Next time, don't try to run again. You found something and still want to keep it for yourself. A boy Ning Shu raised his fist. Then, these people dispersed. Ning Shu touched the blood on his nose. He couldn't bleed anymore. Just now, these radishes snatched a piece of moldy loaf of bread. There must be a shortage of food in this place. What could he use to make up for the loss of so much blood? Ning Shu looked at these garbage mountains and climbed to the top with difficulty. Looking up, Ning Shu was stunned. What the hell is this place? What entered his sight was an endless garbage pile. It was all garbage. Dust floated in the air. Looking at the distance, it was a dim yellow. He couldn't see the sky, nor could he see the trees. At a glance, it was all garbage. It was all garbage. The poisonous gas from the decomposition of the garbage was very destructive to people. It was even more serious than the smog. Ning Shu came down from the garbage mountain. He wanted to find a place to properly receive the plot. But it seemed that everywhere was the same. Ning Shu felt weak. He didn't know if it was because he lost too much blood or because he was too hungry, but he felt dizzy. Let's cultivate first. Ning Shu sat cross-legged, on the garbage and prepared to start cultivating. She was actually bullied by a group of little radishes. But after cultivating for a while, Ning Shu opened his eyes in disbelief. Fuck, what is this place? There is not a bit of spiritual energy, not a bit. Chapter 1262. The air was filled with poisonous gas. Ning Shu was already trying his best to absorb the spiritual energy in the air, but he couldn't absorb any spiritual energy at all. Ning Shu's eyes were about to pop out. There was no food. There was no spiritual energy. There was no soil to eat, only trash. Ning Shu had a tragic feeling of dying before he could succeed in this mission. Ning Shu sadly began to accept the plot. Planet Zelda was a trash planet. Because there was no energy, there were no mines. Even if there was metal suitable for mecha, it had been hollowed out. Therefore, such a planet had no value at all. Thus, it became a place to dump trash. Almost all the trash in the galaxy was sent here. However, there were still some natives on this planet who couldn't leave planet Zelda. There was no food or clean water in this place. The water was polluted by endless mountains of trash. The sky was always gloomy. There was never a blue sky or white clouds. The people living on this planet hoped to leave this place and live on another planet. However, they didn't have advanced spaceships, and the distance between planets couldn't be reached by ordinary means. Therefore, the spaceships that came to dump trash were everyone's hope. This trash might bring food, and perhaps take them away from planet Zelda. However, the people of other planets disdained the natives of planet Zelda and never thought of taking them away. Who would care about people who were like rats? The people living on planet Zelda were rats who lived on trash. Every time, they would proudly fly over planet Zelda, pouring down endless trash. The original owner was called Eliza, a native of planet Zelda. She was 12 years old this year. However, because of the lack of food, she was relatively short. Eliza had a younger brother who was about 10 years old. However, Eliza's brother was crippled and couldn't walk at all. His parents had died early. The air was polluted, food was scarce, and water was dirty. People who lived in such an environment had very short lifespans. Usually, Eliza and her brother depended on each other. Because her brother couldn't walk, Eliza took on the livelihood of the two of them. They dug through the trash every day, hoping to find something to eat. Even if they found something to eat, it might be snatched away by others. Just like how the confused Ning Shu had been robbed. After being robbed, Eliza and her younger brother would have to starve for a day. At first, Eliza thought that she and her younger brother would be like their parents. They would die early and their corpses would be mixed with the garbage. Things had changed. It was unknown which planet these people came from, but they had gathered everyone on the planet together. It tested one's mental strength. If one's mental strength was strong enough, they could be taken away from this dirty planet. Alyssa's brother didn't participate in the spiritual power test because of his leg. Elsa went to participate in the spiritual power test. Surprisingly, Elsa's spiritual power was pretty good, reaching A level. Although it wasn't a top-notch S-level spiritual power, it was considered pretty good on planet Zelda. Thus, Eliza had the opportunity to leave Zelda and be trained as a mecha pilot. Alyssa begged them to bring her brother along. However, she was rejected. No matter how much Eliza begged, the other party would not agree. Alyssa had to leave Zelda alone. Eliza was thinking that once she became a mecha pilot and had her own AI spaceship, she would definitely come back and take her younger brother away. She would also make a pair of mecha legs for her brother so that he could get out of the wheelchair and stand up. When they set off, Alyssa's brother begged his sister not to leave him. Her brother fell from the wheelchair and crawled in front of Alyssa. He hugged Alyssa's leg and told her not to leave him. Alyssa knew that this was the only chance to change her and her brother's fate. She had to go. Alyssa promised her brother again and again that she would definitely come back. Definitely. Alyssa stepped onto the spaceship and left Zelda. Looking at Seldar from the spaceship, there was a dirty fog floating above Seldar. There were endless mountains of trash. It was a scene of devastation. Occasionally, these people would chat and say that Seldar would disperse sooner or later because of the depletion of energy. However, there was no free lunch in the world. It was impossible for a pie to fall from the sky. These people came to planet Seldar to look for people with strong mental strength, not to train strong mecha pilots, but to deprive these people of their mental strength. The reason why they came to planet Seldar to look for people was because of the Interstellar Treaty. These people didn't dare to openly violate the Interstellar Treaty. The interstellar inspectors wouldn't care about people looking for Seldar at all. Planet Seldar wasn't included in the Interstellar Treaty's jurisdiction. What would happen if a person was deprived of their mental strength? They would either become an idiot or die. And Alyssa would die. She wouldn't return to Seldar. She couldn't go back to see her brother, and she couldn't make a mecha leg for her brother to stand up. Alyssa just wanted to live with her brother. If she had known that this was the situation, she wouldn't have left her brother no matter what. Alyssa wanted her brother to stand up and leave planet Seldar together. Ning Shu let out a long breath. He didn't dare to breathe too hard. If he breathed too hard, he would fucking choke and cry. His determination to leave Seldar was carved into his bones. However, leaving was easier said than done. If he could leave, there wouldn't be so many people on Seldar. They were really like rats, reproducing and eating trash. Alyssa's wish was to live and leave Seldar with her brother so that he could stand up. She wanted to become a mecha pilot. Ning Shu, who couldn't cultivate, was simply at a loss. Without enough physical strength, how was she going to dig through the trash and find food? It was really a hopeless place. Ning Shu rubbed his stomach. He felt so hungry. Ning Shu rubbed his legs, which were a little numb from sitting cross-legged, and began to dig through the trash. Ning Shu struggled to pull open a broken mecha arm. This mecha arm was quite finely made. The joints were bent and moved freely. It was just that it was too heavy. Ordinary people couldn't use it at all. Mechas were controlled by mental strength. That was why some people used unorthodox methods to deprive others of their mental strength. Those who were deprived of their mental strength didn't end up well. They either died or went crazy. If their brain was concussed, it would be almost irreversible damage, so they would be a lunatic for the rest of their lives. Ning Shu ignored the mecha arm. If she could cultivate it, she might be able to carry it and smash people. Ning Shu thought for a moment and buried the mecha arm in some trash. It might be useful in the future. Ning Shu dug through the trash. Some things, Ning Shu didn't dare to imagine what they were. He was afraid that he would vomit. I can't stop your behavior. I only hope that we will never meet again in this life, and never know each other. Your behavior to me is a thief. Don't expect me to be nice to you. Also, don't speak dirty words. You just hope that I will be scolded to the point of abandoning the novel. I want to write, I want to write, I want to write, I want to write, I want to write. Chapter 1263. Ning Shu rummaged through the garbage for a while, but didn't find anything. Her hands were so black that she couldn't see her original skin anymore. Ning Shu shook her head and clicked her tongue. How good would it be if there was a fasting pill in this situation? However, the exchange system in the mall was closed, and she couldn't exchange for the things she needed to survive. In other words, she had to survive like the people of planet Seldar. They would happily welcome the spaceship that was dumping the garbage, and then swarm into the garbage to look for food. There might be a lot of food in the freshly dumped garbage. Leftovers. If she was lucky, she might even find some expired food that hadn't been opened. These things were trash to people from other planets, but to the people of Seldar, they were good things. If she found a nutrient solution, it would be even better. The nutrient solution could satisfy all the energy the human body needed, and she wouldn't have to eat for several days. For the people of Zelda, this was a legendary thing that could only be found by chance. Ning Shu sighed. Should she go home now or continue rummaging through the garbage? Forget it, she'd better cultivate. Unwilling to give up, Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the ground and began to practice the cultivation method of the peerless martial arts. After cultivating for a long time, Ning Shu opened her eyes weakly. Ning Shu, I'll go, I'll go, I'll go, I'll go, she had never encountered such a situation before. Ning Shu had thought that there was less spirit energy in the modern plane. However, this place had really refreshed Ning Shu's understanding. Compared with this place, the modern plane was really a good place with abundant spirit energy and fresh air. Not finding anything, Ning Shu planned to go home. Bypassing the towering garbage mountains, Ning Shu arrived at the place where the original owner lived. Ning Shu, she had thought that her system space was a dangerous house, but she didn't expect there to be an even simpler place. The house was made of cloth and supported by some sticks, like a short tent. There was garbage everywhere. The tent was under the garbage mountain. Ning Shu sighed inwardly. No matter where she was, there were people struggling to survive. The people on planet Zelda lived for no reason at all. Ning Shu walked to the outside of the tent. Fortunately, he was short and didn't need to bend over to enter the tent. It was a little dark in the tent. Ning Shu heard the sound of a wheelchair rolling. He turned his head and saw a person in a wheelchair coming out of the darkness. Sitting in the wheelchair was a child of 8 or 8 years old. The child's skin was pale, and although his clothes were dirty, his hands and face were clean. The wheelchair was found in a garbage dump. It had been repaired, so it was difficult to push it. This should be the original owner's younger brother, Arvez. Arvez was very thin and weak. His skin was so pale that it was almost transparent. It was probably because he rarely basked in the sun and was malnourished. Arvez had a pair of blue eyes. Looking at Arvez's eyes was like looking at the sea. They were pure blue, sparkling and reflecting a faint luster. Coupled with his pale face, Arvez felt an indescribable sense of melancholy. Seeing that Ning Shu's hands were empty, Arvez said, "I didn't find anything to eat." Ning Shu said gloomily, "I found half a piece of bread, but it was snatched by those brats." Arvez didn't care. "It doesn't matter if you didn't find anything." Ning Shu felt that it did matter. How could it not matter? If they didn't find any food, it meant that they were going to starve. He didn't know if they would be able to see the sun tomorrow. The temperature difference between day and night on planet Zelda was huge. It was hot during the day and cold at night. Planet Zelda didn't have the ability to control the seasons at all. The weather was extremely strange. Cold and hungry, many people died in their sleep. Ning Shu had never encountered such a situation. Even when he was on a mission, he didn't have anything to eat. Ning Shu scooped out some water from the water tank. The water was murky. Ning Shu was so thirsty that his throat was smoking, but when he saw the water, he didn't have the courage to drink it. If he drank such dirty water, would he get dehydrated? Would he get sick? If he got sick, he wouldn't have any medicine to treat it. Fuck. Ning Shu held the broken bowl and brought it to his mouth with a tragic expression. Arvez looked at Ning Shu with a distorted face. "Sister, let the water out first. Wait until the garbage and dust in the water sink to the bottom of the bowl. I'm just too thirsty." Ning Shu put down the bowl and looked at the big water tank. There was a thick layer of sand and black sludge at the bottom of the tank. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu saw some charcoal at the foot of the wall and was delighted. Charcoal could absorb the impurities in the water. Ning Shu took a small piece of charcoal and put it in the bowl. Then, he took a pot that had been ravaged until it was crooked. He scooped some water into the pot and put in the charcoal. When the water was clear, Ning Shu poured out the clean water and prepared to boil some water to drink. There were definitely a lot of bacteria and germs in the polluted water. Drinking unboiled water was simply torturing his body. Arvez looked at the busy Ning Shu and didn't say anything. He sat quietly in the wheelchair. Ning Shu hung the pot and started to boil the water. Ning Shu put flammable garbage into the fire while holding his chin and thinking about how she and Arvez should live. Eliza's wish was to live, leave planet Seldar, become a mecha pilot, and let her brother stand up again. These wishes really gave Ning Shu a headache. Every one of them was very difficult. Surviving on planet Seldar was really a matter of life and death. There were no food crops here, only garbage. Picking up garbage might not necessarily lead to food. After leaving planet Seldar, Ning Shu only wanted to say, "Stop fooling around. How do you get from one planet to another? Without a spaceship or a wormhole, you couldn't leave at all." Becoming a mecha pilot was even more of a joke. Mechas were simply luxuries. They needed people to build them, not just spiritual power. The only chance to leave was to go to planet Seldar and find someone with strong spiritual power. "Sister, the water is boiling." Arvez sat in the wheelchair and saw the water bubbling in the pot outside the tent. Ning Shu came back to his senses and extinguished the fire. He looked at the smoking water in the pot. How nice would it be if some noodles could be added to it? Thinking of noodles, Ning Shu felt even hungrier. Ning Shu took a broken bowl and filled it with water for Arvez and himself. After filtering and boiling, Ning Shu felt that the water should be clean. With this psychological comfort, Ning Shu gulped down the water. Ning Shu took something that looked like cardboard and covered the remaining water in the pot to prevent dust from falling inside. "Arvez, drink boiled water in the future," Ning Shu's brother said. Arvez nodded, looking very obedient. Arvez was really a quiet baby who didn't like to talk. Chapter 1264. Ning Shu and Arvez each drank a bowl of plain water. Then, they looked at each other in silence. Ning Shu looked at Arvez's watery blue eyes and said, "I'll definitely find something next time." Arvez said, "You won't find it every time." "Don't worry, sister." Ning Shu felt even more guilty. This was really a day that made people despair. "Arvez, Arvez." A girl's voice came from outside the tent. Then, a girl about the same age as Arvez entered the tent. The girl had wine-red hair that was long enough to reach her ears. Her face was a little dirty, and she was wearing a small skirt and barefoot. She was holding something in her arms. When she saw Arvez in the wheelchair, she handed the thing to him. "Eat it." The girl had sent some unopened food. These things were very rare on planet Seldar. Ning Shu was a little surprised that the girl had sent such valuable things. Arvez tapped the wheelchair with his finger and said to the girl, "Thank you, Vivian, but I can't accept it. Your brother will beat you." "It's okay. My brother won't know," Vivian said with the red hair. She stuffed the food into Arvez's hands. "Hurry up and eat." Vivian's brother was the boss of this junkyard. The junkyard was divided into areas, and there were people who abused their power in each area. If one went to the area under the junkyard's jurisdiction to pick up garbage and look for food without the permission of the junkyard's boss, they were likely to be beaten up. In serious cases, they might even be killed. Ordinary people who picked up food had to hand over some of it as a protection fee. Vivian was afraid that Arvez would refuse to accept it, so she ran out of the tent in a panic. In the end, she tripped and fell to the ground. She got up in embarrassment and ran away. Ning Shu stared at Arvez's side profile. He lowered his eyelashes and looked at the food on his lap. With a pale face and long eyelashes, he was a delicate and melancholic young man. It was rare to see such a person on planet Seldar. Vivian must be infatuated with her brother's beauty. Looks were justice. This was a gift from the heavens. Ning Shu coughed, and Arvez turned to look at Ning Shu. Ning Shu smiled and said, Vivian must like you. What do I like? I'm just a cripple. I can't even walk. I can't survive on planet Seldar, Arvez said. I'm just a burden. I might be abandoned at any time. Ning Shu froze for a moment and then said, how could that be? It can't be. Arvez lowered his head and handed a piece of bread to Ning Shu. You eat it. Thank you, little brother. Ning Shu happily received the bread. The bread was a little black, so it was probably buckwheat. Ning Shu tore open the packaging and took a bite of the bread. The bread had a strange taste and was not fluffy anymore. But now, Ning Shu was very hungry. Even if the bread had expired, Ning Shu still felt that it was delicious. Ning Shu finished a small piece of bread, drank a mouthful of water, and said to Arvez, you should eat some too. The sky gradually darkened, and the air suddenly became cold and condensed. Ning Shu began to tidy the bed, which was made of wooden planks. There was a black quilt and some tattered clothes on the bedboard. Ning Shu rubbed his hands to warm them up a little, then shook the dust off the quilt. Ning Shu shook the quilt, and the dust flew up, causing Ning Shu to choke and cough. There was a lot of dust in the junkyard, and there was no water to wash clothes and quilts. Even if they were washed clean, a thick layer of dust could accumulate in a day if they were exposed to the sun. To be honest, the people who survived on planet Seldar were also very strong. Their vitality could not be underestimated. Arvez ate and watched Ning Shu tidy up. After Ning Shu tidied up the wooden planks, his whole body was freezing. He said to Arvez, let's go to bed quickly. Ning Shu could not adapt to such a temperature difference at all. He was still in Africa during the day, but he was in the North Pole at night. Arvez slowly pushed the wheelchair to the side of the bed. He could not stand up, so he could only bend his body forward and climb up the wooden planks. Ning Shu hugged Arvez's waist and was about to carry him to the bed, but when he exerted his strength, he almost sprained his waist. Ning Shu forgot that he was weak now. He was used to his infinite strength. Suddenly becoming so weak, Ning Shu wanted to cry. Ning Shu moved Arvez to the bedboard with difficulty, panting heavily. Fuck, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. Ning Shu moved Arvez's legs under the quilt. When his hand touched Arvez's calf, it was like touching a bamboo pole. Ning Shu lifted his trousers and saw that Arvez's calf was a little atrophied. There were no muscles, just skin and bones. Arvez hurriedly waved Ning Shu's hand away and put down his trousers. Ning Shu was stunned by Arvez's rough actions. He blamed himself for poking Arvez's sore spot. Ning Shu said, let me massage you. That way, your blood and chi will be active. I heard that other planets can cure this disease. If we can leave here, your legs will be able to stand up. Ning Shu reached out and pressed his hand on Arvez's leg. His movements were gentle. Ning Shu asked Arvez, don't you feel anything? Arvez lowered his head, and his hair fell in front of his forehead. He shook his head. I'm numb. I don't feel anything. Ning Shu sighed in his heart and continued massaging. On planet Seldar, many children were born with problems and all kinds of defects. For example, their heads were extremely big or their bodies were deformed. Water pollution, dirty food, and some radioactive waste. Their bodies were contaminated, and the children they gave birth to would also have problems. Ning Shu massaged Arvez for a while, then covered himself with the blanket and lay down with Arvez. Ning Shu felt that the blanket was very smelly. His body was smelly, and Arvez's body was smelly too. However, how fragrant could it be living in a garbage dump? Who knew when one would get used to it and feel that there was no smell? However, it was really fucking cold. Even with a blanket, Ning Shu felt like he was sleeping in a world of ice and snow. Ning Shu could not help but move closer to Arvez. Arvez asked, "Sister, what are you doing?" "Forming a group to keep warm. It's too cold. Let sister hug you." Ning Shu leaned close to Arvez. Ning Shu's mind was extremely clear from the cold, and he could not sleep at all. On Selder, every day was a challenge. Every day was torture. Ning Shu said to Arvez, "I will definitely take you away from here and live on another planet. I will heal your legs and let you stand up. Even if it can't be healed, you can use the mecha's legs. Arvez can also walk." Chapter 1265. Ning Shu said this to Arvez to strengthen his mentality. In such an environment, it was very easy for people to not be able to hold on. If they were really hungry, they would even gnaw on their own fingers. Ning Shu spoke of Eliza's wish. To be able to leave this place, become a noble mecha pilot, help her brother stand up, and live on a better planet with her brother. However, Arvez said, "We have no way of leaving this place at all. Ning Shu, reality is very cruel. Do you want me to think about it?" "Maybe. No matter what, I have to leave this place with Arvez." If she could not leave Arvez, how was she going to complete the mission? This was simply not a place for people to live. Sooner or later, planet Selda would collapse from the burden. If Selda really collapsed, the endless garbage on this planet would be scattered in the universe. Ning Shu said firmly, "Definitely. We will definitely leave this place." Ning Shu was so cold that his teeth were chattering, and Arvez's body did not have any temperature either. The night was a huge test. Ning Shu did not even know how he fell asleep. He was woken up by the heat the next day. Ning Shu really wanted to punch the ground. Couldn't the fucking temperature be more constant? When there was a sun, the sun shone directly on planet Selda without any transition or obstruction. There was also no atmosphere to filter and reduce the harm of solar radiation. When the sun came out, after an hour, the temperature would be so hot that blisters would form on the soles of their feet. Ning Shu felt that he would never love again. Arvez, who was beside Ning Shu, was also sweating profusely. Ning Shu took off his thick clothes and pants, hugged his waist, and moved him to the wheelchair. After doing all this, Ning Shu felt that he was about to die of exhaustion. He gave water to Arvez. Ning Shu gulped down a bowl of water and said to Arvez, "Stay at home. I'm going to look for food." He had to go through the trash. If he couldn't find anything to eat, he and Alveus would go hungry. Whether they were clean or not was not a problem in the face of survival. Alveus said, "Sister, there's no more water in the tank." Ning Shu went to the water tank and took a look. There wasn't much water left. The bottom of the water tank was filled with sand. Ning Shu overturned the water jar and removed all the sand from it. Then, he carried the pot and prepared to fetch water. There was a river nearby. The original owner, Eliza, went to this river to fetch water. Ning Shu stood by the river, his entire body going Spartan. The water in the river was very muddy. From afar, it looked like muddy water with all kinds of garbage floating on it. Some people even jumped in to take a bath. Ning Shu was speechless. After drinking this bowl of water, it was guaranteed to cure all diseases. It was over. Ning Shu knew that the environment on planet Selder was very bad, but this still refreshed Ning Shu's understanding. Alyssa and Alves drank this kind of water. Ning Shu covered his face. The weather was very hot. Ning Shu stood for a while, sweat dripping down. Forget it. At least there was some water now. It wasn't to the extent of drinking urine. Ning Shu went to the shore and used his hands to push away the floating garbage. He slowly fetched water with the pot and let the cleaner water flow into the pot. After filling the pot with water, Ning Shu carried the pot back and fetched water over and over again. The weather was very hot to begin with. Ning Shu made many trips to fill the tank with water. After filling the tank with water, Ning Shu was so tired that he stuck out his tongue. After resting for a while, he wiped the sweat off his face and went out to look for garbage again. Ning Shu said to Alvius, "I'm going out. Be careful at home alone. I'll be back when I find something." Alvius nodded. "Be careful. Don't worry if you can't find food. If others want to snatch it, don't take it head-on. You'll get beaten up." "Got it." Ning Shu took a rag and tied it to his head. The sun was too hot. Ning Shu found the shady garbage mountain, sat cross-legged under it, and began to cultivate. He couldn't do anything if he didn't have enough stamina. He was panting after running a few steps and was very afraid of the cold. If he had energy, he would be able to resist the cold. The living environment was so harsh. Ning Shu had been cultivating for quite a while. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. He opened his eyes and sighed helplessly. It was useless. Without spiritual energy, she didn't have enough food for her to extract energy. As for cultivation manuals, Ning Shu did have them, but without spiritual energy, everything was useless. Martial arts manuals extracted and absorbed the energy in the air. This energy was spiritual energy. But there was no other way. Perhaps soon, planet Zelda would no longer be suitable for human survival. Ning Shu closed his eyes and began to cultivate again. He didn't know how much time he had wasted. Ning Shu didn't extract any spiritual energy. Instead, some foul energy entered his body because of the frequent use of the mental cultivation method. Ning Shu patted his chest and coughed twice. He felt black air coming out of his mouth. This was really a sad thing. Ning Shu was now hoping that the attribute points she added would be able to give this body some bonuses. What should he do when he was so weak? How should he leave planet Zelda? Ning Shu stopped cultivating and rummaged through the garbage to see if he could find something to eat. The missions were getting weirder and weirder. They were getting harder and harder. Ning Shu begged in his heart that he could find something to eat. Ning Shu couldn't rummage through some of the large items in the garbage. Ning Shu was like a mouse. In order to survive, he looked for food in the endless garbage mountain. Ning Shu also wanted to be a queen, but the conditions didn't allow it. The sun was scorching his body. Ning Shu felt that his back was sunburned. It was burning. The back of his hand was red. Ning Shu felt a little dizzy. After searching for a long time, Ning Shu found a jar. There seemed to be pickles in the jar. Ning Shu was surprised. People in the Interstellar still ate pickles. Ning Shu wiped his hand on his body and dipped his finger in the jar. It was sour. It really looked like pickles. There were some fruits and some strange vegetable stalks in it. But it was fine as long as it was edible. He could take it back and boil it to disinfect it. At least in 90 degrees or 100 degrees water, it could kill some bacteria. As for those that couldn't be killed, there was nothing he could do. If he didn't eat it, he would starve to death. Ning Shu carried the jar and prepared to go back. It was good enough that he had some gains. Ning Shu didn't walk far before a group of radishes surrounded Ning Shu. Ning Shu stared at these little brats. Why did they keep staring at her? Did they think that she was easy to bully? Last time, she let them snatch it because she was confused and didn't know the situation. This time, she wouldn't let them snatch it again. The boy in the lead stared at the thing in Ning Shu's arms. His eyes lit up and he seemed to be drooling. Chapter 1266. Hand it over. The little brats finally could not help but snatch it. Ning Shu hugged the jar tightly. This was not handing over the jar, but handing over her and Arveza's lives. Without food, she and Arvez would die. Ning Shu did not waste any more words. He bent down, grabbed the trash on the ground, and threw it at the boy. The boy was afraid that his face and eyes would be hit, so he hurriedly covered his face. Ning Shu quickly smashed a few more times and knocked away the people who surrounded her. She then ran away in the garbage, one step at a time. Ning Shu chased after the group of little radishes behind him. Ning Shu grabbed a sharp thing that looked like an iron wire and turned around to threaten these people. "If you dare to follow me again, I will poke your eyes out. Come on." Ning Shu did not run forward. Instead, he turned back and rushed towards these people with the iron wire. Ning Shu's expression was cold, as if he wanted to die together with them. These little radishes were scared into a daze. "I'm telling you, I'm not afraid of you," the boy said with a trembling voice. "Let's go. We'll tell Vivian's brother to chase her and her crippled brother out of here." After the boy finished speaking, he ran away in a group. The most important thing was not that he was afraid of Ning Shu, but that his eyes would be injured in the process of fighting. In Zelda, one could not have legs. Without legs, one could still crawl, but without eyes, one would not be far from death. There was no way to find food in the endless trash. When these children ran away, Ning Shu immediately relaxed and sweated profusely. Ning Shu put away the iron wire for self-defense and carried the jar home. Ning Shu walked outside the tent and heard people talking inside. One was Arveza's voice, and the other was Vivian's voice. Ning Shu walked into the tent and saw a book on Arveza's lap. This book was more damaged. Vivian sat next to Arvez and read the book with him. Arvez looked up and saw the jar in Ning Shu's arms. He was stunned for a moment before saying, "You're back." Vivian greeted Ning Shu. "Eliza." Ning Shu put down the jar and said to Vivian, "In the future, you can come here more often to talk to Arvez." "All right." Vivian's eyes were squinted as she smiled. Her wine-red hair was a perfect match for Arvez. He did not know if it was because of his leg, but Arvez was very quiet. He did not speak much and did not have any friends. However, in this place, there was no friendship between people. In fact, in the next moment, they could even fall out and fight over an edible piece of trash. The lifespan of the people on planet Zelda was very short. They were at most 20 years old, and 30 years old was the limit. At the age where they could reproduce, they would start having children at the age of 15 or 16. When the children could walk and find food, their lives would end. Some children were so hungry that they ate their parents' bodies while they were still in a daze. They were clearly in their prime, but the people of planet Zelda were about to die. He did not know if the lifespan of the people of planet Zelda would increase after they left this place. "Arvez, you can read?" Ning Shu asked in surprise. Why didn't she know that Arvez could read? She did not know from the plot provided by Eliza either. Vivian said, "Arvez is so powerful. He can read." Ning Shu was even more surprised. There were very few people who could read on planet Zelda. That was because they had to survive every day and dig for food in the trash. They did not have such awareness at all. Knowledge was useless here. A book was not even as good as a piece of bread. Arvez said, "I can't read. There are pictures on it." "I read according to the pictures." Ning Shu glanced at the book on Arvez's lap. So he was telling stories by looking at pictures. Ning Shu drank a bowl of water and said to Arvez, "If I find a book next time, I'll bring it back for you to read so that you won't be bored." "Thank you, sister." Seeing that Ning Shu had returned, Vivian was embarrassed to stay here. She said goodbye and left. Ning Shu took out some things from the jar. There were some fruits and vegetables. There was a sour smell in the air. It made one's cheeks ache. Ning Shu smelled the vegetables and fruits and said to Arvez, "Vivian is really a good girl." A kind girl even brought food to Arvez. There was a faint smile on Arvez's pale face, causing his blue eyes to reflect a dazzling luster like a shining sapphire. Ning Shu was quite happy to see Arvez like this. If Arvez was happy, Eliza would feel less guilty. When Eliza left planet Selder, she had promised to come back, but she had not done so. Ning Shu put the pickled vegetables in the pot and poured some water that had been purified by charcoal. Ning Shu lit the fire and started cooking the pickled vegetables. Ning Shu did not know if this was pickled vegetables or not. What if it was some kind of chemical thing? What a scam! Ning Shu poked at the vegetables and fruits in the pot, thinking, how good would it be if there were some noodles in it? Ning Shu really wanted to eat meat. So greedy. Ning Shu was afraid that this thing was poisonous, so he cooked it for a while. Then, each of them had a bowl. I'll try it first, Ning Shu said. He picked up the bowl and tasted it. It tasted sour, but it was quite appetizing. Ning Shu took a fruit the size of a ping-pong ball and took a bite. The fruit was very sour and had many seeds. It tasted a bit like hawthorn. Ning Shu finished the bowl of soup and even burped. There was no reaction, so it should not be poisonous. He said to Arvez, "It's okay, you can eat." Arvez lowered his head and drank a mouthful. He said softly, "Sister, you don't have to do this. If anything happens to you, I won't be able to live either." Ning Shu said casually, "You will definitely be able to live. It just depends on whether you want to live or not." Ning Shu closed the lid of the jar and hid it. He was afraid that those little brats would come to his house and snatch it away. Ning Shu saw that it was still early and prepared to go out to find something to store. Ning Shu was like a mouse now, storing food bit by bit. There was food at home, but he did not feel at ease. Humans were really adaptable. Under the threat of death, Ning Shu felt that it was not that unacceptable to look for food in the garbage. There was no room for pretense in survival. "Don't go. You've been out for quite some time. It's going to be dark soon," Arvez said. Ning Shu looked up at the sun above his head. The sun was shining in the sky and it was going to be dark soon. However, Ning Shu was very obedient and did not go out. After dark, there would be no sun and people would freeze to death. What if she froze to death outside? Ning Shu thought about it and took the blanket out to dry. It might be warmer at night. If there was a lot of dust, he would dust it off later. Life was really fucking hard. Chapter 1267. Alvius said it was getting dark. Sure enough, it didn't take long for the sky to turn dark. Ning Shu thought, I'll go. His previous worldview was completely useless here. This was really a sad thing. Ning Shu dusted the blanket with a stick and carried it into the house. Without the sun, the temperature plummeted. Ning Shu hugged Alvius's waist, lifted him onto the wooden bed, and massaged his calves. Alvius said, "No need. It's useless. It's useless, but it's normal to maintain the bloodline." Ning Shu pressed the acupuncture points on Alvius's leg. If only there were silver needles, he could also acupuncture the acupuncture points. It could smooth the blood flow. But where could he find silver needles? Ning Shu rubbed the acupuncture points on Alvius's leg vigorously and asked, "Do you feel anything?" When a normal person's acupuncture points were pressed, they would either feel sore or as painful as being pricked by needles. Alvius shook his head. "I don't feel anything." Ning Shu wasn't angry. After all, Alvius had been in a wheelchair for so long. It was impossible for him to be cured with just a massage. Ning Shu massaged for a while and lay down next to Alvius. "Stay close to sister. It's warm when you're together." Ning Shu leaned against Alvius. Although the environment was harsh, it was still warm to have someone to rely on and support each other. It felt like a child like Alvius shouldn't be on planet Zelda. Ning Shu opened his eyes in the darkness. Soon, those people would come to planet Zelda to look for people with spiritual power. This was their only chance to leave this place. However, many of those people were mecha operators. One of them could kill a large group of people from planet Zelda without any effort. It wouldn't be easy to seize their spaceship. And even if they did, they might not be able to use it. The smart brain spaceship could identify outsiders and contact others. The technology outside was unimaginable to the people of planet Zelda. And even Alyssa didn't know who these people were. Ever since she was born, Alyssa had never seen such a clean and miraculous spaceship with clean food and water. Everything felt like heaven. Eliza was confused and helpless. She did whatever these people told her to do. Ning Shu didn't think that he could beat so many people with his small body. He had to make a good plan. However, in the face of absolute strength, petty tricks were not necessarily useful. Listening to Arve's even breathing, Ning Shu's heart also calmed down. There was no point in being impatient. Ning Shu moved closer to Arve's and closed his eyes. Ning Shu woke up early in the morning. He was afraid that he would be woken up by the heat like yesterday. After packing everything up, Ning Shu went out to look for food. Sometimes, when he came across books, Ning Shu would put them away and bring them back for Arves to read. Ning Shu occasionally flipped through the books and realized that Ning Shu didn't recognize the words on them at all. The original Alyssa was completely illiterate, so Ning Shu didn't understand the skill of literacy at all. Generally speaking, if the original Alyssa was literate, Ning Shu would also be literate when he went to that world. Now, Ning Shu could only speak the language of this world. He couldn't write the words of this world. He didn't know if Arves could read or not. However, what troubled Ning Shu was that every time she found something early in the morning, someone would appear to snatch it from her. This made Ning Shu suspect that these people were following her on purpose. When she was digging for trash, Ning Shu would avoid people and go to another place to dig. There wasn't much here, just a lot of trash. However, whenever she found something, someone would come and snatch it. Looking at the familiar brats, Ning Shu only wanted to say, "Can you go and snatch other people's things? Don't always stare at me." When faced with evil forces, if you couldn't run away, you could only fight head-on. Ning Shu pulled out the metal wire and stabbed it at these people. A few children were stabbed by Ning Shu. They covered their shoulders and cried out loudly. Ning Shu didn't know if it was because he had been running a lot recently and had trained his body well. He wasn't as out of breath as before. You. The little kid pointed at Ning Shu. Just you wait. Ning Shu raised the metal wire in his hand. This time, I only stabbed your arms. Next time, I'll stab your eyes. Humph. These brats raised their heads and gave Ning Shu a vicious look before running away. I'll stab you again next time. Ning Shu took the books and some dirty food and went back. Ning Shu's daily routine was to dig for trash and massage Arve's legs. Occasionally, Vivian would come over and give Arves some food, although it was all dirty and expired. After coming to this world for a while, Ning Shu was sure that Vivian liked Arves. Ning Shu saw this and didn't say anything. However, Ning Shu thought that if Arves really got together with Vivian, she would have to sleep alone. It was so cold. No, Arves and Vivian were only 9 or 10 years old now. They were too young. Let's wait a little longer. Ning Shu made batter with the bread he dug out from the trash and boiled it in boiling water to disinfect. Ning Shu and Arves only ate one meal a day. They were always hungry, but they wouldn't starve to death. Arves looked at the book Ning Shu picked up. Ning Shu saw that he was reading seriously and suspected that Arves was actually literate. How could he be so serious when looking at a picture? Ning Shu was busy with the work at hand and went to the lake to fetch water. The water level dropped a lot because the temperature during the day was too high and water evaporated easily. Also, Ning Shu had been in this world for a while and it hadn't rained. If this continued, there would be no water. Logically speaking, according to Ning Shu's previous worldview, it was hot during the day and cold at night. The colder the air was, the more it turned into water droplets. It should rain. But it didn't rain. Ning Shu filled a tank with water. Of course, it was muddy water. Worried that there would be no water to drink, Ning Shu went out to find a large water tank to fill it with water. Ning Shu ran back and forth with a pot in disgust. He found a jar and carried it away. 2 pots of water in one trip. After filling the water tank, Ning Shu filtered the water with charcoal and boiled it for drinking when he was thirsty. Arvez watched Ning Shu busying himself and asked, "Am I very useless? I have to rely on you to survive?" Ning Shu couldn't answer this question. He said no, but Arvez was indeed staying at home. He said yes, but it poked at Arvez's wound again. He didn't know what was wrong with his leg. Usually, when she came home, Arvez would pour water for her. She could drink water as soon as she came back. She would do what she could to do. "Sister, you don't have to force yourself. I'm your burden," Arvez said with his head lowered. Ning Shu shook his head. "You're not my burden. You're my pillar. We'll help each other survive. We'll survive in Zelda and leave in the future." Chapter 1268. Arvez said that he was a burden, but he was probably still afraid of being abandoned. Ning Shu, on the other hand, felt that even if Arvez was abandoned, he could still survive. There was no need to ask why. Ning Shu had this feeling. He did not know how Arvez had lived after the original owner of this body died. Vivian liked Arvez, so she probably would not abandon him. Ning Shu said firmly to Arvez, "We will continue walking. Even if we die, we will die together." The original owner of this body regretted leaving Arvez at that time and disregarding his own life. Arvez stared at Ning Shu with his blue eyes. His pale face seemed a little transparent as he said, "I will always be with my sister." Ning Shu smiled at Arvez. No wonder the original owner of this body was worried about his younger brother. Arvez was really a pitiful baby. Ning Shu repeated the same life every day, picking up trash and going to different places to pick up trash. Furthermore, there were always unruly people who wanted to steal her things. Of course, Ning Shu would not be polite. Ning Shu looked at the endless garbage mountain and wondered if she could use this garbage to deal with those people. Seizing a spaceship was a very difficult task, and it was also very dangerous. If the people of planet Zelda united, they might be able to kill those people. However, in the face of outsiders, the people of planet Zelda only had a fanatical desire and worship. They begged these people to take them away. Perhaps they did not even dare to resist. Ning Shu felt that it was very difficult. She could not do it alone. The others might not listen to her either. Ning Shu looked around. Many people were bending down to pick up the garbage on the garbage mountain. If these people worked together, they would definitely be able to kill those people. Those people had killed Eliza and had a lot of planet Zelda's blood on their hands. Let them die on planet Zelda, or let them live on planet Zelda forever and let them experience life on planet Zelda. Ning Shu's idea was beautiful, but it was very difficult to carry it out. The sun was scorching. Ning Shu wiped his sweat. After being here for a while, Ning Shu had adapted to the weather. Ning Shu put the edible things he found in the bag. He also found some stale and rotten fruits. Although there were rotten parts, there were also good parts. He could take them back and wash them. After digging out the rotten parts, they could still be eaten. Ning Shu, I'm really a thrifty little angel. Ning Shu found several large barrels. These barrels were about the same height as Ning Shu, and they were all over the place. Some of the large barrels were broken, revealing a thick black substance inside. Moreover, this substance was very pungent. Ning Shu took something and poked at it. It was a bit like asphalt and was sticky. He didn't know what the hell it was. Hey, that thing can't be eaten. Ning Shu shouted as a child stood on the garbage mountain. Ning Shu turned around and raised his eyebrows. This child often robbed him, but now he was kind enough to remind him. His name seemed to be Ma Chi. Seeing that Ning Shu didn't say anything, the child thought that Ning Shu didn't believe him. He ran down from the garbage mountain and pointed at the barrel. This can't be eaten. If anyone eats this in the future, they'll all die. Ma Chi said. It was pitch black and sticky. Who would eat such a thing? I'm not eating it. I'm just looking. Ning Shu poked at the black substance. It was oily and sticky. Ning Shu felt that it should be some kind of waste. Ning Shu hadn't come into contact with other planets, so he didn't know what the outside world was like. He could only guess based on what he knew. Ning Shu looked at the few barrels of waste and decided to take them back and study them. Ning Shu stared at Ma Chi. Push this thing back with me. You dare to order me around? Ma Chi stared at Ning Shu with wide eyes. Ning Shu took out a slightly rotten fruit. If you want to help, this fruit is yours. Okay. Ma Chi looked at the fruit and replied without thinking. Then he reacted and said fiercely, who gave you the guts to order me around? Since you have something, hurry up and hand it over. Ning Shu rolled his eyes and patted him on the head. Do it or not? If not, go find someone else. Ma Chi glared at Ning Shu and started to move the big barrel. This barrel was thicker, and Ma Chi couldn't even hold it. Ma Chi used all his strength and still couldn't move the barrel. Ning Shu, are you stupid? Who told you to carry it back? Put it down and push it. Let the barrel roll and move. Ning Shu grabbed Ma Chi's collar and pulled him away. Ning Shu pushed the barrel over and said, we'll each roll one. Ning Shu pushed the big barrel and found that it was very heavy. Seeing that Ma Chi's face was red from pushing it, he said, we'll both push one. Ning Shu and Ma Chi pushed the big barrel slowly and spent a lot of effort to push it back home. Arvez looked at the wooden barrel in surprise. What is this? Ning Shu shook his head. I don't know what it is either. They put the barrel outside the tent. Sister, drink some water. Ma Chi, you drink some too, Ning Shu said. Arvez, you know him? Ning Shu asked in surprise. Ning Shu didn't know the child's name before. It was only when he heard others call him that Ning Shu knew that his name was Ma Chi. Arvez didn't leave the tent, but he still knew Ma Chi's name. Arvez said, Ma Chi is actually Brother Vivian's subordinate. I heard it from Vivian. Ning Shu said, oh. Arvez poured cold water for Ning Shu and Ma Chi. I'll pour it myself. Ma Chi took the bowl from Arvez and scooped water to drink. Ning Shu rolled his eyes at him. You're really not polite. Do you think this is your own home? Ning Shu and Ma Chi drank the water and planned to move the remaining barrels back. Ma Chi asked curiously, that thing can't be eaten. Why are you moving it back home? I don't know what it's for. I'm willing. After moving the barrels of unknown substance back home, Ning Shu gave Ma Chi a fruit as promised. Ma Chi took the fruit, glanced at Arvez, and returned the fruit to Ning Shu. Give it to your brother. He's lame. Ning Shu was speechless. Why weren't you so kind when you robbed people in the past? Compassion was superfluous on planet Seder. Arvez said, thank you for your help. This fruit should have been yours in the first place. Ma Chi snorted coldly, turned around, and ran away. Ning Shu couldn't help but laugh. He said to Arvez, this person is really strange. Arvez said, sister, what's the use of those things? Ning Shu shook his head and used something to get some black substance that looked like asphalt out of the barrel. It was very sticky. Ning Shu placed the object on the ground and lit it with fire to see if it could burn. Chapter 1269. What surprised Ning Shu was that this thing was very flammable. It was only a small piece, but it burned for a long time. However, it would crackle and explode in the water. It was like there was water in oil. It would explode. It felt like fuel waste. It was probably because the temperature was higher during the day. This thing was very soft and sticky under the sun. Ning Shu took a broken bowl and filled it with water. He added some fuel to it and threw the fire into the bowl. The flames in the bowl immediately jumped up. It could burn in water. This was good stuff. It could be used for lighting at night. And there were several barrels of this thing. He didn't know what kind of energy this was. It could burn for such a long time. At the same time, Ning Shu had an idea. If they carried it out well, they could really leave Zelda and leave this planet that was becoming increasingly uninhabitable. Ning Shu put the broken bowl aside and washed the fruit he found in the bag with water. He dug out the rotten parts and gave one to Arves. He took one and ate it himself. The fruit was very sweet. Ning Shu had never eaten such sweet fruit. She must be too hungry and thought that it was too delicious. "Sister, is there anything to be happy about?" Arves saw Ning Shu's face beaming with joy. Ning Shu smiled and said, "Don't you think this fruit is delicious? There are a few more. I'll leave them for you. You can eat them when you're free," Ning Shu said. Arves chewed on the fruit. "Keep them. You can eat them when you're thirsty outside. It's okay. Hurry up and eat them. It's hot during the day and they'll rot quickly," Ning Shu said. Ning Shu had been out for the past few days and felt that some people were very excited. They would look up at the sky from time to time. Could it be that the spaceship to dump the trash was coming? This trash could bring a feast to the people of Zelda. Seeing others so excited, Ning Shu was a little expectant and excited. Ning Shu was speechless. It was just trash. What was there to be excited about? Don't fall. Don't fall. Other than looking for garbage, Ning Shu also knew how to use that kind of fuel. The more the better. Ning Shu asked Ma Chi to help him find that thing. Ma Chi raised his chin and asked, "What's the benefit?" "There's no benefit. If I find something good, I'll give it to you," Ning Shu said. "I'll keep an eye out for you." March left with his lackeys. This thing was probably not easy to find. Perhaps there was, but it was probably scattered all over planet Zelda. And they might have been buried. After all, there was so much trash in Zelda. Ning Shu felt that the few barrels of fuel were not enough. It would be great if there was more fuel. A few days later, a spaceship flew over Zelda, carrying with it an endless amount of trash. The garbage was like rain, falling endlessly. Thanks to this trash, Ning Shu and Arves were able to eat 2 full meals. He stored some food. Food is hard to preserve on Seder because it is too hot during the day. "Hey, I found what you said." Ma Chi came home to inform Ning Shu. Ning Shu was cooking. When he heard Ma Chi, he quickly asked, "Where is it?" Seeing Arves reading in the tent, Ma Chi lowered his voice and said, "It's the new trash. There's what you want. Good brother." Ning Shu patted Ma Chi's arm. "I'll treat you to a meal." Ma Chi covered the place where Ning Shu patted him. "You hit me so hard. This was called pain. It used to be pricking." Ning Shu used a broken bowl to fill Ma Chi's bowl with all kinds of mixed things. "Eat. When you're full, follow me to push it," Ning Shu said with a smile. Ma Chi was not afraid of the heat. He gulped down the vomit-like stuff and ate with relish. After that, Ning Shu and Ma Chi brought back some fuel. Ma Chi asked Ning Shu, "What are you going to do with all this stuff?" I'm going to light a fire for fun, Ning Shu said casually. You'd better be careful. There's trash all around. If the fire starts, the entire Seder will become a sea of fire, Ma Chi said with a straight face. Seder was full of trash and there was no water source. If it caught fire, everyone could only wait to die. Ning Shu nodded. Got it. Ma Chi glanced at Arvez, who was in a wheelchair, and left. Arvez put down the book in his hand. Ning Shu asked, what do you want to do? But these things are really dangerous. If they catch fire, it'll be very harmful, Arvez said. Ning Shu said, I just think they're good stuff, so I'm collecting them. Arvez's blue eyes narrowed, but he didn't say anything. Ning Shu fiddled with the fuel every day. At night, the fuel would solidify a little because of the cold weather. And it wouldn't burn fiercely at all. Ning Shu stirred the fuel with a stick. It was very sticky and very strenuous. He couldn't stir it at all. Ning Shu had a plan in his mind, but he had to discuss it with Arvez. Could it be that she had to tell Arvez that someone would come soon and drive a spaceship to Seder to look for someone? They could then snatch the spaceship and leave this place. If she told Arvez that, Arvez probably wouldn't believe her. She couldn't predict the future. She would be suspicious for no reason. So she could only wait for those people to come and then plan with Arvez. Ning Shu looked at the fuel and sketched out the scene over and over again in her mind, planning over and over again in her mind. Ning Shu waited for those people to come. On this day, a huge spaceship was suspended in the sky above Seder, blocking out the sun. It blocked out part of the sunlight. At the same time, a sound wave spread to every corner of Seder. Inhabitants of Seder, you now have a chance. A chance to go to Seder and become a great and noble mecha pilot. Everyone on Seder had a look of incomparable desire on their faces. They even shouted at the spaceship. As long as you have strong enough spiritual power, you can leave this place and become a mecha pilot. An endless stream of bewitching voices came from the spaceship, with a dreamy tone that made people fascinated and crazy. Ning Shu and Arvez sat in the tent and listened to these words. Arvez, we must leave Seder. Seder can no longer survive, Ning Shu said to Arvez. Arvez tightened his grip on the wheelchair and asked, Sister, will you go? Will you go and test your spiritual power? Arvez asked. Ning Shu nodded without hesitation. Of course. He had to go and see how many people there were so that he could make a plan. Arvez's face trembled. His blue eyes were like the surging sea, about to set off stormy waves. Sister, are you going to abandon me? Arvez looked at Ning Shu and asked softly. Chapter 1270. Arvez looked at Ning Shu, his blue eyes reflecting a cold and hard luster. Sister, are you going to abandon me and leave Seder? How is that possible? How can I abandon you? Ning Shu said with certainty. I'm going to take you away from planet Seder and let you stand up. Arvez's expression was very strange. It seemed to be mocking, sad, and an indescribable emotion. In short, it was very complicated. Sister, I might not have strong spiritual power. How can I leave with you? Arvez asked. Ning Shu said without thinking, Sister will think of a way. With such an opportunity, the people of planet Seder became restless. Being able to leave planet Seder was the biggest temptation. Although they were born on planet Seder, everyone's wish was to leave Seder and live elsewhere. Soon, many people went below the spaceship to wait for the spiritual power test. A huge ladder was lowered from the spaceship. Everyone swarmed up, afraid that they would be too slow. Through the spaceship, Manson saw these people. Their dirty clothes, dirty bodies, and dirty souls should live in this kind of garbage. A sarcastic smile appeared on Manson's face. Manson, how many people on planet Seder do you think have strong spiritual power? A burly man walked over and asked Manson. He stared down at the people from planet Selder who were swarming up to the spaceship. Joyce, I don't think there are many, Manson said. Not many is already a compliment. It should be very few. How can they train their spiritual power if they can't even guarantee their survival? Manson said calmly with an arrogant expression. Joyce turned his wrist. Maybe these people are focused on finding garbage, so their spiritual power might be strong. I like this joke, but the air here is really suffocating. Tell the people below not to send those people up. Manson took out a handkerchief and covered his nose. If there aren't many people with strong spiritual power here, we still have to find the next distant planet. How can such a bumpy thing happen to us? Manson was a little irritated. The long interstellar travel had put him in a bad mood. Joyce said, I think it's pretty good. It's simple. A planet like this can be destroyed with a few laser cannons. These residents are all very weak. They probably don't have any mecha operators. No one can pose a threat to us. However, Manson was very irritated. I hate traveling. I hate it very, very much. Joyce shrugged and looked down at the ant-like Seldians. It's hard to imagine that there are still people alive in this place. Ning Shu stood on the trash mountain. Many people from planet Selder were heading towards the spaceship. Some were going up and some were coming down. One ladder was to go up, and the other ladder was to go down. Both sides were filled with people. Back then, Eliza's spiritual power had been at level A, which had reached the target of those people. She was definitely going to test her mental strength to find out more about those people. Ning Shu raised his head and looked at the spaceship. This spaceship was so big that it could fit a lot of people. These people were searching everywhere for people with spiritual power. If they didn't dare to attack the mecha operators, they would look for planets like planet Selda, where the natives were weak. They could enslave them as much as they wanted. Ning Shu ran down the garbage mountain and entered the tent. He saw Arve's back facing him, clearly ignoring him. Ning Shu shouted, Arve's sister, if you want to test your mental strength, you can go. It's also a good thing if you can leave planet Selda, Arve said to Ning Shu as he turned his wheelchair around. Ning Shu said, even if we have to leave, I'll take you with me. If we're leaving, we'll leave together. But I don't have spiritual power, Arve said. Ning Shu asked, you haven't tested it yet. How do you know you don't have spiritual power? I guessed. How can a burden like me have a strong spiritual power? Arve said dejectedly. Ning Shu said angrily, spiritual power has something to do with the brain. It has nothing to do with the legs. Don't think too much, Ning Shu said. Arve's was speechless. Arve's. Vivian's voice rang out, crisp and cheerful. Ning Shu raised her eyebrows at Arve's. Your little girlfriend is here. Ning Shu took the initiative to leave the tent and met Vivian at the door. Vivian's wine-red hair shone brightly under the light. Eliza, you'll be tested for your spiritual power, right? Vivian asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu nodded. Yes. Vivian went into the tent to talk to Arve's, who was not in a good mood. Ning Shu cooked something to eat in a pot and observed the movements on the spaceship. More and more people went to the spaceship, and more people returned in disappointment. Without strong spiritual power, they would be kicked down mercilessly. These people would not be kind enough to take away a useless person. It would be a waste of energy to carry one more person. Vivian talked to Arve's for a while and left. When Vivian came out of the tent, she was crying. Ning Shu asked, what's wrong? Vivian stomped her feet. Eliza, I'll be leaving first. Ning Shu looked at Vivian's back and carried the bowl into the house. He gave the bowl to Arve's and asked, what did you say to Vivian that made her cry? Nothing. I just said that I won't be tested for my spiritual power, Arve said. Ning Shu also agreed that Arves should not be tested for his spiritual power. If Arves really had strong spiritual power, he could only be pulled away and deprived of his spiritual power in the end. When are you going to test your spiritual power? Ning Shu asked Arves. Ning Shu drank the food in his bowl. Let's talk about it later. There are a lot of people now. The people on planet Selder were in a state of excitement and could not calm down. After a while, when more people failed, they would slowly calm down. Ning Shu said, "Brother, we have to find a way to leave this place." Arves did not even look up. You can leave this place as long as you pass the spiritual power test. Ning Shu felt that Arves was being weird. Ning Shu said, "Brother, let's hijack the spaceship." What? Arves turned around in shock and looked at Ning Shu in disbelief. What are you talking about? Do you think that's possible? Arves put away his surprised expression. There are so many people on planet Selder. Can't we beat them? Ning Shu said. Even ants could kill an elephant. Arves shook his head. The power of technology is sometimes unimaginable. There are many people on planet Selder, but in the face of certain forces, numbers can't solve the problem, Arves said. Chapter 1271. Ning Shu knew what Alveus was talking about, but she knew that there would be no other opportunities like this. These people would stay here for a while. This was their only chance to leave. Arves glanced at Ning Shu and said, "There must be a mecha operator on the spaceship. The spaceship must also have defensive measures and attack means. It must have weapons of mass destruction." She knew, Ning Shu knew, but she had no choice but to fight. However, Ning Shu was surprised that Arves's explanation was so clear and logical. "How do you know all this?" Ning Shu asked. "I read it in books. There are also some attacks that can directly vaporize people or objects. What's the use of having more people?" Arves said. Ning Shu thought, "My brother is really knowledgeable. What if we get rid of the mecha operator on the spaceship and control it?" Ning Shu discussed with Arves. "The difficult part is how to control the spaceship," Arves said calmly. It was precisely because it was difficult that they had to think of a foolproof plan. Destroy the artificial intelligence. Ning Shu did not know if his little knowledge of coding would be useful in the interstellar dimension. Arves was silent for a moment. "Why do you have to do that? If your spiritual power is qualified, you can leave here. You don't have to do this at all." "Because I want to take you away," Ning Shu said. If they got on the spaceship, they would only be waiting for death. There was an inescapable net all around them. With her strength, there was no way she could escape. They might as well take advantage of the fact that they were on planet Selda, their home ground. They had a slight advantage and directly seized the spaceship. After exploring for a while, they would definitely be able to drive the spaceship away. "I can also go and test my spiritual power. Maybe I have spiritual power too. Then I can leave with you," Arves said. Ning Shu quickly shook his head. "Don't go. I have a feeling that these people are up to no good. There are so many people in the interstellar. Why would they come to our planet to look for people? Don't other planets have people with strong spiritual power? Also, the people on planet Selda don't live long. They die before they can cultivate a strong mecha operator." The physical fitness of the people on planet Selda was not good at all. Just thinking about it made him feel that there was a problem. Arves' eyes flashed. "Hearing you say that, I feel that there is a problem. If we want to leave this place, we have to seize the spaceship. It won't be easy to achieve this. We'll need a lot of manpower. Why don't you discuss this with Vivian's brother? He's the boss of this area. Many people listen to him. If he can help, our chances will be higher," Alveus said. Ning Shu nodded, put down the bowl, and went to look for Vivian's brother. Ning Shu went to look for Vivian's brother in the hot weather. Vivian's brother was a skinny man who was about 17 or 18 years old. His thin and weak appearance didn't look like Boss at all. He was a far cry from Ning Shu's imagination of a burly loafer. However, there were very few people on planet Seldar who were fat and fat. There was a shortage of food, so they couldn't accumulate fat at all. Most of them were sallow and emaciated. Eliza. Vivian saw Ning Shu and immediately greeted him. "Are you here to look for me?" "I'm here to look for your brother." Ning Shu looked at Owen. Owen turned to look at Ning Shu. His expression was indifferent, and there was a murderous aura around him. This Owen had obviously killed someone before. There was a murderous aura around him. It seemed that it was quite difficult to secure the position of boss. "Why are you looking for me?" Owen asked. "My brother and I have something to discuss with you. Can you go over for a while?" Ning Shu said. Vivian immediately said to Owen, "Brother, let's go, let's go." "Girls are extroverted," Owen spat and said angrily. "For your sake, I'll go and see Arvez, whom you keep talking about," Owen said. "Thank you, brother." Vivian immediately smiled, her face full of joy. Ning Shu was a little surprised. He thought that it would take a lot of effort to persuade the boss of a region to go to their house, but the other party agreed just like that. This feeling was like inviting a county magistrate to a commoner's house, and in the end, he succeeded. The group arrived at the tent. Owen walked in and looked at Arvez, who was sitting in a wheelchair, and asked, "Why are you looking for me?" Arvez calmly told Owen about what he had discussed with Ning Shu. Ning Shu felt even weirder. It was as if Arvez was assigning tasks to Owen. Arvez was neither servile nor overbearing in front of the boss of the region. This made Ning Shu feel that his brother was really not an ordinary person. After hearing Arvez's words, Owen shook his head. This is very difficult. Most importantly, when they saw such a large spaceship, they couldn't even muster any will to resist. The people of planet Seldar were all people who had not seen the world, so they had to resist the outsiders. They didn't dare. The difference in strength was too great. "We can use this thing." Ning Shu pointed at the bucket outside the tent. Inside the bucket was the fuel that Ning Shu had collected. "We'll think of a way to deal with the mecha operators. Without the mecha operators, ordinary people will be easy to deal with." He didn't believe that everyone on the spaceship was a mecha operator. People with strong spiritual power were not everywhere. If there were so many of them, these people wouldn't be looking for people with strong spiritual power everywhere. Ordinary things like washing clothes, cooking, and sweeping the floor should still be ordinary people. Maybe they were robots. That would be even easier to deal with. Ning Shu told him the method that she had been planning in her heart. Arvez heard Ning Shu's plan. "It's a little risky." "Even if it's risky, it's worth it," Ning Shu said. Arvez looked at Owen and said, "I'll have to ask you to gather people for this matter. If we can really leave, we'll have fulfilled the wishes of our ancestors. We won't have to live in the garbage anymore. The people of the galaxy have never considered the Seldians. They ignored our wishes and treated Seldar as an abandoned planet. They dumped all the garbage on planet Seldar." Owen looked a little angry. "It's a good thing to be able to leave planet Seldar. If we fail, the price will be too high. They might destroy Seldar because of this." Owen shook his head in disagreement. Arvez said indifferently, "You don't have many years left to live anyway." Owen was now 17 or 18 years old. According to the average lifespan of the Seldians, Owen didn't have many years left to live. Owen's face trembled. Ning Shu was speechless. How could they talk like this? Their relationship would be strained at any moment. Forget about cooperation, they might even fight now. Chapter 1272. In order to prevent the conversation from failing, Ning Shu immediately livened up the atmosphere. My brother is just outspoken. He's young and ignorant. Owen, you have to be more tolerant. Actually, everyone doesn't have many years left to live. Owen was speechless. Brother, don't be angry. Listen to Arvez first, Vivian said immediately. Arvez coughed. Owen looked a little impatient. Then tell me, what if those people get angry and destroy planet Zelda? Arvez's pale finger tapped the wheelchair and shook his head. They probably won't. Zelda is now used as a place to put garbage. If they don't find a suitable place to dump garbage, they won't destroy planet Zelda. At most, they'll kill people in anger. There's so much interstellar garbage here. If planet Zelda is destroyed, the garbage will float in the universe and become cosmic dust. It will affect the movement of spaceships. The people in the tent were stunned by Arvez's words. Owen stared at Arvez. How do you know? Judging others by their own standards. Some time ago, spaceships dumped garbage on Zelda. This means that Zelda is still useful. These people won't dare to destroy Zelda. Ning Shu really wanted to applaud Arvez. His brainwashing skills were amazing. He was talking nonsense with a straight face. Even if those people destroyed planet Zelda and escaped, no one would know. As for the garbage that had become cosmic dust, it could be cleaned up. It just depended on whether the people of the Interstellar Alliance were willing to spend money. After all, endless garbage was a headache. If a spaceship flying at high speed hit garbage or cosmic dust, there could be big problems. Interstellar rescue was a very troublesome matter. Brother, I think what Arvez said makes a lot of sense. Vivian looked at Arvez with admiration. Owen pushed Vivian, who was standing in front of him. Go away. His sister was Arvez. Everything she said was right. Owen thought for a moment. I'll gather the manpower. Owen discussed some details with Arvez and then planned to leave. Let's go. Owen grabbed Vivian and dragged her away. Ning Shu poured a bowl of water for Arvez and gave him a thumbs up. You're amazing. Drink some water. He was usually quiet, but at the critical moment, he had the demeanor of a general. Owen called some people over, including March. When March saw Ning Shu, he raised his chin and coldly snorted at Ning Shu. Ning Shu couldn't be bothered with the little brat. He stood on the trash mountain and looked at the situation of the spaceship. There were still many people who went to test their spiritual power, but many of them were eliminated. Ning Shu even saw people fall from the spaceship as if they had been thrown out. The spaceship was suspended in the air at a certain height. If they were thrown down like this, they would definitely die. If there were any sharp objects on the ground that pierced through their bodies, they would definitely die. Owen was busy with some people, and Ning Shu would occasionally help. Seeing that the trap was almost done, Ning Shu planned to test his mental strength. Be careful, Vivian, Ning Shu said. Ning Shu smiled and said, I'm fine. Don't let anyone leak the news, Ning Shu, Owen said. Owen's face was full of annoyance. You don't have the right to tell me what to do. All right, he was the boss. Ning Shu, Arvez reminded him, be careful. I'm leaving. There's some food in the pot. Arvez nodded. Ning Shu went in the direction of the spaceship. The spaceship looked close, but it was fucking far away. Ning Shu climbed over trash mountain after trash mountain. When he reached the bottom of the spaceship, there were so many people that Ning Shu was almost squeezed up. Just as he reached the entrance of the spaceship, a strong water pressure sprayed towards him. It was so strong that Ning Shu fell to the ground. When Ning Shu saw that there was water, he opened his mouth and drank until he was full. It was the first time he drank such clean and clear water. It was a waste to use it for a shower. It was such a blessing to drink such clean water. The filth on Ning Shu's body was washed away by the water. It turned out that they were afraid that the dirty Selder would dirty the spaceship. There were people in neat clothes. These people had dull expressions. Their eyes were not human eyes. There were all kinds of symbols and lines flashing in their eyes. They were probably robots, but these robots had skin and were similar to real people. The robots brought Ning Shu and the others to the hall where the spiritual power was tested. Along the way, Ning Shu observed the surroundings. There should be surveillance cameras everywhere on this spaceship. He wondered where the AI's cockpit was. Soon, a group of people arrived. The hall was very big, like a football field. From inside, one could directly see how big the spaceship was. There was high-tech everywhere. Ning Shu was dazzled. All the Seldians who had entered the spaceship were amazed. They looked around in disbelief. People who live in the garbage can't imagine the outside world. Ning Shu was amazed. This was just a plane. There were many planets in this plane. It was very, very big. The evolution of the plane was incredible. He hoped that the world she built in the future could be as big as this. The procedure of the test was to use instruments first. A person stood in a test cabin and quickly analyzed the condition of the person being tested. Spiritual power, physique, and other aspects of the body. Ning Shu looked at the people in front of him. Many people failed the test. Not one of 100 people passed. They were directly eliminated by the test cabin. Spiritual power not qualified. Spiritual power not qualified. Body disease. Recommended immediate quarantine. Those who were detected with disease were directly chased away and thrown out of the spaceship. Ning Shu was speechless. How cruel. Basically, the people on planet Selder were sick. Under the pollution of garbage and all kinds of radioactive garbage, it would be strange if their bodies were not sick. The hall was half empty, and there was no one with qualified spiritual power. Ning Shu saw that the people on the spaceship were a little impatient. Their expressions were very bad. They probably couldn't find anyone with qualified spiritual power. That was why their expressions were so ugly. It was Ning Shu's turn to be tested. He took a deep breath and stepped into the test cabin. Ning Shu felt a light scan his body. Her spiritual power should be qualified. After all, the original owner's spiritual power was also qualified. The light scanned Ning Shu's body again. The staff on the spaceship looked expectant. Usually, multiple scans meant that the spiritual power was qualified. After such a long time, only a few people had qualified. The higher-ups were already blaming them, saying that they were wasting energy. Spiritual power qualified. A-level spiritual power, to be developed into S-level spiritual power, the female voice in the test cabin said calmly. Finally, one of us qualified. One of the inspectors said to Ning Shu, who was still standing in the test cabin. Come out quickly. You still have tests to do. The other Seldians looked at Ning Shu with envy. She had entered heaven from then on. Chapter 1273. The test was still going on, and a staff member brought Ning Shu to another test site. Ning Shu looked around, memorizing the characteristics of the places she passed by. What are you looking at? The staff member saw Ning Shu looking around, and said unhappily. Ning Shu immediately retracted his gaze, and his hands grabbed the corner of his shirt and kneaded it. I have never seen these things before. The staff member heard Ning Shu's words, and a proud and disdainful look appeared on his face. Don't look blindly. If you offend the Honorable Mecha Master, you will die a horrible death. I know. Ning Shu's voice was trembling, as if he was very afraid. The staff member brought Ning Shu to a test room, where there were all kinds of test tools, big objects, and small objects. Use your mind to lift the whole ball. The staff member placed a round stone the size of a ping-pong ball on the table. Ning Shu picked it up with his hands, and it was very heavy. Ning Shu asked in confusion, "What should I do?" The staff member said, "You have to use your spiritual power to suspend this ball in the air." Ning Shu, suspend? If you can't suspend it, you have to at least use your spiritual power to push this ball, the staff member said. Ning Shu was still dumbfounded. I don't know. This staff member was not someone with strong spiritual power, and did not know how to do it. He said it several times, but Ning Shu was still confused. The staff member's face was very bad, and if this person did not have spiritual power close to S level, he would not talk to such a lowly person. A lowly person who ate garbage. Such a good spiritual talent in the hands of a lowly person, it was a waste. Focus your mind. Focus your mind. Focus your mind. Focus your mind on one thing. You think that the ball can fly. Fly. The inspector felt like he was about to go berserk. Ning Shu had an innocent look on her face. She released her spiritual force and poked the ball a little. Then, there was no movement. That's it. The inspector was speechless. It's still an S-level spiritual power. Ning Shu shrugged. I have no idea what you're talking about. Without special training, how could he release his mental power? Seriously. The staff member didn't say anything. Anyway, the detection pod had already detected that the error rate was less than 1 in 100,000. Ning Shu asked curiously, does it mean that as long as you can move things without using your hands, you have strong spiritual power? Those who don't release their mental strength may not necessarily be people with strong mental strength, but those with strong mental strength must be people with strong mental strength, the staff member said. Ning Shu opened his eyes wide and said immediately, really? My brother can move things without using his hands. Sometimes he can even move a bed. A look of ecstasy appeared on the staff member's face as he asked anxiously, where is your brother? My brother's legs can't walk. He didn't come to test his spiritual power, and my brother is regarded as a monster. He never goes out and doesn't see anyone. Ning Shu said. The staff was speechless. It was obvious that he was a person with strong mental strength, but he was regarded as a monster. Quick, take me to your brother. He was really lucky to meet a brother and sister with strong mental strength. Ning Shu shook his head. My brother doesn't see anyone. As long as he goes out, we can give him the best treatment. There will be many people to serve him, he will live in an incomparably spacious house, he will be able to eat his fill, and he will never be poor again. The staff member tempted Ning Shu. There will also be a lot of galactic coins. Ning Shu's face was full of longing, but then he shook his head. My brother has a strange temperament. He won't see anyone. If you force him, when he goes crazy, his eyes will be red, and there will be strong winds around him. Everything will float, and he will commit suicide. Ning Shu said Amitba in his heart. Alveus was actually a good baby. This, will commit suicide. The staff member's expression was incredulous. With strong mental strength, he was actually regarded as a monster. And this monster didn't know that he had a treasure on him. The heavens were really blind. You'd better not harass my brother. If he commits suicide, I won't go with you. Ning Shu took 2 steps back, extremely vigilant. The staff member rubbed his forehead. I'll ask the higher-ups. Wait for me here. Don't run around. Ning Shu shook his head directly. Don't disturb my brother. My brother won't go with you. We won't let go of someone with strong mental strength, the staff member said. Ning Shu was dumbfounded. What? No, I mean, we won't let go of someone who can become a strong mecha pilot. Your brother has such good talent. Don't waste it. Ning Shu still shook his head. No, you will drive my brother to his death. The staff member looked impatient. Wait here. I'll ask the higher-ups. Don't go. I shouldn't have mentioned my brother. Ning Shu's face was full of regret and looked depressed. My brother will blame me. My brother will kill me. The staff member ignored Ning Shu and left in a hurry. Ning Shu stood in place and waited impatiently. Then, he strolled around. He looked around everywhere. Madam, this is not a place for you. Please leave. Ning Shu had just gone upstairs when a robot in a tuxedo stopped Ning Shu and said coldly. Ning Shu had no choice but to go back. Now was not the time to alert the enemy. Ning Shu went downstairs obediently. He guessed that there was a more important place upstairs. The spaceship was very big. Ning Shu looked around in surprise and noted some markings. Occasionally, she would meet some robots. These robots either ignored Ning Shu or chased her away. Ning Shu turned around and left without any reluctance. After a while, Ning Shu planned to go up to the upper floors to take a look. She wondered if the robot was still guarding there. Madam, this is not a place for you. Please leave. The same robot said the same thing. Ning Shu, it seemed that the robot was guarding here. Ning Shu could only leave and walk around. Sometimes, she would even open the door to look. She was not worried that these people would not be able to find her. After all, everyone on this spaceship was basically transparent. They were being monitored. Soon, a robot came over and said to Ning Shu, Madam, please go to the examination room. Please follow me. The robot walked in front. Every move of the robot was like a human. When technology was developed to the extreme, could it split mountains and fill the sea and create life? Speaking of which, 2333 was also a kind of technological life. Ning Shu followed the robot back to the examination room. The robot first bent down and put his hand on his heart. Honorable Master, I have brought the person. Chapter 1274. Ning Shu saw that there were two more people in the examination room. One of them had a noble expression and was covering his nose with a handkerchief. The other person was burly and had a 5-pointed star badge on his clothes. He sized up Ning Shu and said directly, So your brother's spiritual power is very strong. Sir Joyce, this girl's spiritual power is not bad. It's A level, close to S level. Joyce, who had explosive muscles all over his body, nodded. Not bad. Take me to your brother, Joyce said to Ning Shu. He looked a little fierce. Although he seemed to be speaking to Ning Shu gently, he still gave off the impression that he was very fierce. Ning Shu quickly shook his head. Not only did he shake his head, but he also waved his hand. No, I really can't. My brother can't be seen by outsiders. Joyce, why are you being so long-winded with lowly people? Just take him to the spaceship. Why are you being so long-winded? If you want to leave the spaceship and pick up that child, I won't go. It's really unbearable here. Manson covered his nose with a handkerchief. Joyce said, didn't you hear her say that the SSS-level child might commit suicide? If you force someone to catch him, he might kill himself before he even gets to the spaceship. Besides, don't you want to see someone who might have an SSS-level spiritual power? Are you sure you want to give me the credit? If I bring him back, there's no way you can snatch him from me. Who would commit suicide? Manson's expression was a little hesitant. He wanted the credit, but the environment outside made him stop. What the hell was this place? Just looking at it was unbearable, let alone being in such an environment. However, catching an SSS-level spiritual power was a great achievement. If he missed such an opportunity, Manson felt that he would vomit blood. Then let's go, Manson said. Joyce pursed his lips. I don't know why you're so pretentious all day. You want to go, but you're afraid of this and that. Don't you think it's because there's too much trash? I'm not a crude person like you. You don't even know what elegance and nobility are. Ning Shu saw that the two of them were quarreling and completely ignored her. Ning Shu said in a panic, I can't go, please let my brother go. Joyce smiled at Ning Shu and said, we won't hurt your brother. Instead, we'll protect him and not let him get hurt. Ning Shu looked doubtful. Really? That's enough, little cutie. You don't have to question us like that. Joyce grabbed Ning Shu's collar and lifted Ning Shu up. Take us to see your brother. Ning Shu tried to move his body, but he was held by the tall and strong Joyce. Ning Shu was furious. This body was really too weak. Joyce and Manson came out of the spaceship and were immediately covered in mechas. The metal parts were like their bodies. With Ning Shu's worldview, he couldn't adapt so quickly. He was still a human before, but now he was covered in metal and flying in the air. Even his fingers were very nimble. He suddenly became a saint. Where is it? Joyce asked Ning Shu. Oh, over there. Ning Shu hurriedly pointed in a direction. Then the two of them quickly flew in that direction. The weather was already hot, and with such a fast speed, Ning Shu felt like he was going to burn up. He could even smell the burnt smell of his hair. Soon, they were outside the tent. Joyce put down Ning Shu. What's special about your brother? His legs are paralyzed, Ning Shu said. Joyce scanned the tent and said to Manson, there's a child in a wheelchair. Joyce said to Manson, who was floating in the air, do you want to go in first, or should I? Ning Shu immediately said, can you let me go in first to see my brother? If you barge in like this, my brother won't be able to take it. Then go in, Joyce said. From the beginning to the end, Manson was very cold. He didn't say anything. Ning Shu entered the tent first. Seeing Arvez with his back to the light, he said, brother, I brought someone to see you. You have to be good. Arvez didn't say anything. Ning Shu had been comforting him the whole time. Joyce listened to the movements in the tent. Finally, Ning Shu came out with a sad face. He shook his head at Joyce. You guys should go back. My brother won't go. Your brother didn't even say anything. How do you know he won't go? Joyce pushed Ning Shu aside and walked into the tent. He met a pair of blue eyes that were as deep as the sea. These eyes were very beautiful. My name is Joyce, Joyce said directly. I heard that you have strong spiritual power. I want you to try it. The person in front of him didn't look like someone who would go crazy and commit suicide at any time. Arvez didn't say anything. He just stared at Joyce and pushed the wheelchair back. Joyce, are you done? Manson was a little impatient outside. Looking at the garbage, Manson felt like he was going to suffocate. Just looking at it made him feel disgusted. What do you want me to do? Arvez asked. I'll just move a few things. Arvez coughed. Ning Shu heard Arvez cough and immediately released his spiritual power. A big bucket flew into the tent and spun twice in the air before finally stopping on the ground. After doing this, Ning Shu felt like his head was going to explode. He felt like his spiritual power was overdrawn. His head was splitting. When Manson saw this, he didn't care about the garbage anymore. He descended from the sky and walked into the tent. Joyce, you must take this child away, Manson said. This kind of spiritual power was exactly what they needed now. Arvez shook his head. I won't go with you. Who cares about that? Just take him away. Manson extended his mechanical arm towards Arvez and walked towards him with heavy steps. Wait, don't be anxious. Joyce pulled Manson back. If he's dead, no matter how strong his spiritual power is, it's useless. This is so annoying. Such a bitch. Manson and Joyce pulled and pulled. Their feet sank into a depression. There was sticky fuel in the depression. Once it was contaminated, it wouldn't be easy to get rid of it. Arvez coughed violently. Ning Shu endured his headache and used his spiritual power to pour a bucket of fuel on the two people who were still in a daze. When it poured down, Joyce and Manson became black things. The more Joyce and Manson struggled, the deeper they sank. In addition, their bodies were covered with sticky fuel. Joyce and Manson's mecha movements were restricted. They were also notified that the mecha didn't have enough power. Chapter 1275. Ning Shu entered the tent and carried Arvez away. Ning Shu threw a fire at the two men who were stuck in the fuel. The flames immediately jumped up. Impudent, foolish people. It's so hot. Manson and Joyce had a bad feeling. If the mecha's temperature was too high, it would lose its function. Without the protection of the mecha, would they be burned to death? Manson and Joyce had never taken Ning Shu seriously, nor did they take Arvez seriously. They had managed to survive in danger, but in the end, they fell into the hands of such a lowly person. Thick smoke billowed out of the tent. Seeing the thick smoke, many people rushed out from all directions. Arvez nodded at Owen. Owen waved his hand and everyone started pouring fuel. Then, everyone silently ran towards the spaceship. "Brother, find someone to help Eliza and Arvez." Vivian saw that Ning Shu was having a hard time dragging Arvez, so she quickly went over to help. Owen hurriedly asked someone to carry Arvez. The smoke was getting thicker. They didn't know how the two mecha operators were doing. "Hurry, we have to occupy the spaceship. The mecha operators aren't scary. The scary thing is the spaceship's attack and defense," Arvez shouted in a hoarse voice. Many people followed behind Arvez and Owen, running towards the spaceship with difficulty. They climbed up the ladder and boarded the spaceship. There was a robot at the entrance of the spaceship. Arvez held a stick in his hand and hit the robot's face with it. The robot's face was immediately flattened, but it didn't bleed. The skin on its face peeled off, revealing a head full of wires and small wires. "Attention, attention, someone is attacking." The robot sounded the alarm. The scene immediately became chaotic. Ning Shu pushed Arvez up. "I suspect that the spaceship's AI is upstairs." Ning Shu went upstairs and a robot pulled them back. Arvez said loudly, "Cut off their power." Arvez held something like a knife in his hand and stabbed the robot's neck, cutting off one of the wires. Then, more and more robots rushed over. These robots were also carrying extremely dangerous weapons. When they were hit by the laser, they turned into ashes. Ning Shu carried Arvez on his back and hit here and there. "Arvez, what should we do now?" Owen's voice was trembling. His opponent's weapon was too powerful. Ning Shu raised his head and looked around. They were all under the surveillance of others. Perhaps the ship's AI was calculating the best way to attack while they were drinking tea. If so many robots are stopping us, it means that this place is very important. "Owen, there are many Seldis on the spaceship now. Tell them that we're going to take over the spaceship. The Seldis can leave this place and let them kill those robots." "We must create chaos," Arvez said with a sullen face. Owen thought for a moment. Since things had already progressed to this stage, retreating meant death. He might as well fight to the death. Owen turned around and left. Before he left, he said to Arvez, "Protect my sister well." Ning Shu said, "Don't worry, I'll definitely protect Arvez." Ning Shu put Arvez down and let Vivian support him. He picked up the gun on the ground. This was probably a laser gun used by robots. Ning Shu did not see the trigger, only the button. When Ning Shu pressed the button, a laser shot out and vaporized a hole in the wall. So powerful. Ning Shu raised the gun, hit his body, and shot at the robot's head. The robot's head was immediately gone. The wires in its neck were sizzling with smoke. Ning Shu killed a robot with one shot. Although Ning Shu had a weapon, the increasing number of robots made his scalp tingle. Sometimes, a robot would appear above his head. Vivian, put away these guns, Arvez said to Vivian. Vivian was originally scared out of her wits. When she heard Arvez's words, she trembled and picked up the guns on the ground. Ning Shu grabbed Vivian and a laser passed by her side. Ning Shu shot the robot's head. Vivian was so scared that her face turned even paler. Ning Shu thanked her. Thank you, Eliza. Arvez took the gun from Vivian's hand and blew up the surrounding probes. With a bang, the probes exploded. Soon, Owen came over with a large group of people. Arvez said directly, pick up the gun on the ground. It's easy to use. When Owen saw that his sister was fine, he heaved a sigh of relief. He held the gun and imitated Ning Shu. However, as someone who had never used a gun before, his technique was very rusty. Arvez asked Owen, what's the situation down there? I said that there's a lot of food on this spaceship. We've occupied the spaceship and asked them to find food and food. For the people of Zelda, food was everything. They would do anything for a mouthful of food. With Owen bringing reinforcements, the pressure on Ning Shu and Arvez lessened significantly. However, the robots that followed made Ning Shu feel numb. Their arms were weapons. There were densely packed muzzles on their arms for them to fire. These robots were weapons themselves. It was simply hair-raising. They were many times more powerful than the previous robots. Moreover, once a person was hit, they would turn into ashes. Ning Shu's heart was filled with curses. In the face of technology, a body of flesh and blood was really vulnerable, especially when her body was so weak now. Ning Shu felt very tired. Previously, he had used his spiritual power and had not recovered. Then, he started fighting directly. He felt that his whole body was not very good. No matter how difficult it was, Ning Shu had to grit his teeth and endure. Otherwise, he would not be able to leave Zelda and become a mecha pilot. He might not even be able to survive. Ning Shu aimed at the muzzle of the robot's arm and destroyed it. He did not know what material these robots were made of. The laser pistols that could kill robots before were no longer a threat to these robots. Other than leaving a small black spot on the robot's body, there was not much damage to the robots. Ning Shu felt very powerless. He felt like a mayfly trying to shake a tree. The power of technology was really unimaginable to him. Sister, destroy his positioning system and aiming system. Arvez shouted at Ning Shu. Due to the intensity of the battle, Arvez was shouting at Ning Shu. Positioning system, aiming system. Ning Shu aimed at the robot's eyes, which were like ripples of symbols jumping around. With a bang, the robot's head was smashed open. As expected, the eyes were its weakness. The team moved forward with difficulty. The entire spaceship was in chaos. There were dirty, crazy-looking people from Zelda running around everywhere. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.